Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome, everybody. No Dom or Crute this afternoon, but you do have Maggie Dawn here in the studio with Fancy Brian in the booth. What's up, Bri?
Hello there.
Hello. And the reason that I'm filling in for the Devils this afternoon is that they will be coming to you live this evening from Minnesota are they starting right at 6 or are they going at 7?
7 o'clock. There's going to be Tim Slecker right after the Devil's Advocates, and then live from from Minneapolis, also simulcasting in Minneapolis as well on 9:50 a.m. KTNF.
Yep, one of Minneapolis's local stations, hopefully soon a cross-promotional juggernaut between Milwaukee, Madison.
Well, the Devils do replay there overnight every night.
Well, that's great.
So that's pretty cool.
You know, now there should be a Dawn of the Resistance, overnight replay.
Oh, you've been on there.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. When you cross over, you definitely play out. The folks in Minneapolis know you.
Oh, excellent. Well, greetings, all of my Devil's Advocate fans. Hopefully, we're going to have a very interesting discussion this afternoon. So much going on in the world today. Obviously, we keep hearing about the increasing death toll on the coronavirus. We can talk about that, the bizarro sort of confab that Trump had with epidemiological experts, also very strange. We've got the Fed announcing an unprecedented 0.5 percentage point cut in interest rates, which is the largest since the 2008 crisis, bringing the effective rate down to, I believe, 1.25%, which should be, basically creating folks that know a little bit to wonder what happens if something extra bad and unexpected happens, because it really gives the Fed only a tiny bit of wiggle room unless we're going into negative interest rate landscape, which of course I will explain all of that wonky stuff to you because I'm an economist and we can do that. We also, of course, have Steve Mnuchin testifying before Congress. Oh, Steve. Again, a lot of Donald Trump's closest affiliates are basically like the cast of sort of like a comic book crime syndicate, right? You've got Roger Stone, which I have to give props to John Oliver, correctly pointed out, looks like he shops at like Business Bad Guy Wardrobe Supply.
Oh, for sure. I when he got sentenced, I was like, now somewhere Roger Rabbit feels safe, finally.
Yeah, he's just literally like a Dick Tracy bad guy. It's the hats, the glasses.
No, the Dick Tracy bad guy, that's Dan Kelly.
Yeah. Well, with that like weird furrowed brow and mumbling.
It's just not good. I hate going out. I normally poo-poo going after someone's looks. I just can't help but think every time I see it, I'm like, that's... Anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. Steve Mnuchin, of course, fitting right into that cast of characters as sort of the evildoer bean counter with his wife. If you haven't ever seen the picture of Mnuchin and his wife getting onto one of our federally taxpayer-funded jets with her, like above-the-knee black leather evildoer bad lady gloves on, paints quite a picture. But a lot going on today. I think one of the things that we need to be salient of is this, and I'll get more into the details about what the Fed rate cut means, but if you haven't watched the chairman of the Fed's press conference from this morning, he looks actually physically pained while he's announcing this rate cut. And I think the reason that he looks physically pained is that he is, because I don't think there can be a reasoned dispute that the president, probably through surrogates, issued a directive to the Fed chair and said, I need you to reduce interest rates to try to help shore up the economy and the stock market. Of course, the stock market helps very few of the middle class. But of course, we're all affected by the macroeconomics, and your 401k is going to be impacted by where the stock market is going as well. This has brought the 10-year treasuries down to an incredibly low return mark, which means that older people as they're approaching retirement or in retirement, if they own a lot of bonds, which they should because it's generally speaking a more conservative investment, there's going to be very little to no yield coming off of those bonds, which is going to make life difficult for a lot of retirees. Of course, those of us who have 401ks that have lost a lot of money, given the estimates are now ranging, $3.5 to say $6 trillion in value that's evaporated since February 19th, and really the hysteria over the coronavirus, that's eventually going to hit us too. What's really remarkable about the Fed slashing interest rates is because it clearly seems to be politically motivated. And had the Fed waited until after Super Tuesday, and Bernie Sanders takes down like a huge, huge win today and during Super Tuesday, and we'll talk about this more, I could have seen the Fed coming back, because Bernie Sanders, if he just takes down a ton of the delegate votes, there will be some market disruptions. That is not something that will settle markets. And that's for obvious reasons. I'm not making a value judgment about that at all. It's just observably true. So a huge Bernie Sanders delegate lead, an insurmountable one even more so, will bring about some additional slippage in the stock market. So I could see the Fed waiting another day before making any announcement. This was coming out ahead of Super Tuesday, and it wasn't a quarter point reduction, which is the most typical reduction. It was a full half point reduction in the interest rates. This is weird, folks. Again, this has not happened. A half point reduction in the interest rates has not happened since 2008. And we're supposed to be, according to Donald Trump, in this great and booming economy. Now, typically when you see these global public health issues, you will see the economy constrict, but it's generally speaking for a quarter or two. And of course, if you're a Starbucks, if you're a manufacturer and you have to not, you tell people to don't come into work, you can never make up the manufacturing or the profits that you lost for that period of time where the plant was shut down or you weren't selling your product. You can't make that up. But typically after those businesses come back up online, the economy rebounds and responds and it starts to hum along. You really see more sticky lags in sectors in the hospitality and travel industries because people will go out less and travel less for quite some time. Having said all of that, what is really concerning to me is that you're seeing the Fed, I believe, fairly nakedly dropping rates specifically in response to a political problem for Donald Trump in order to help Donald Trump with a political problem. So you're seeing the politicization of the Fed. That is not good. Listen, if there is a place where you really just want subject matter experts involved in holding the levers of power and policy, it's when we're talking about macroeconomics and central banks. Now, let's not forget, Donald Trump, when he was in the fight with Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, a couple of years ago, literally said, I think I'm smarter than Jerry Powell. The guy's a PhD economist. You can disagree with him. You can think that economics is all washed up. But to say that you're actually smarter than this guy, I don't know about that. He said, I trust my gut. My gut is better than any brain. What if you have indigestion, sir? So now we've got the politicization of the Fed, the major monetary policy arm, the central bank of the United States. This on top of the politicization of our law enforcement apparatus. We've got an attorney general who's completely turned over the reins of prosecutorial discretion to the president. Okay, so we're talking about the justice system. We've got the politicization of the judiciary with all Trump's court packing after 2 terms of Obama getting blocked at every turn by Mitch McConnell, robbed of a Supreme Court justice. So the judiciary, the law enforcement apparatus, and now the central bank totally politicized. Again, to my Republican and conservative friends, explain to me how this is either A, normal, or B, more importantly, acceptable in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't make any sense. So again, I'm Maggie Dawn. from Dawn of the Resistance, which plays out Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7, filling in for Dom and Crute, who are en route to Minneapolis to do a live Super Tuesday show starting at 7 o'clock tonight. You can, of course, join my conversation at 844-967-2789. That is 844-967-2789. When we come back, I'll talk about the other really critical U.S. cabinet level member who also seems to have abandoned any pretense of just dutifully doing his job, and that is Steven Mnuchin vis-a-vis Donald Trump's tax returns. He's been testifying before Congress today. You know, I think getting it handed to him pretty decidedly. So we'll listen to a little bit of that discussion. But if you haven't watched Jerry Powell's press conference from this morning, you got to check it out. The guy looks like he would literally rather be anywhere else on planet Earth except for in front of that podium announcing a 0.5-point interest rate cut. I'm Maggie Dawn. This is the Devil's Advocates Radio on Wisconsin's Political Talk, 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison. Join us, call or text at 844-967-2789. Lock it in. We're going to do a little fun with Steve Mnuchin when we get back.
And there's a message that I'm sending out like a telegraph to your soul. And if I can bridge this distance, stop this heartbreak overload, I ain't missing you at all. Missing you. Since you've been gone, missing away, I ain't missing you. Missing you. No matter what my friends say, I ain't missing you. I ain't missing you. I can lie to myself, and there's a storm that's raging.
I want to release my tax returns, but I can't release it while I'm under an audit. Believe me.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do.
Yes, you're very smart. Shut up.
This is Earl Ingram Jr. inviting you to a celebration of African American heritage, history, and culture. We Are the Drum, presented by Capitol Productions, showing at Milwaukee Marshall High School, 4141 North 64th Street in Milwaukee. Opening night, Saturday, February 29th, with 2 shows at 3 and 7 p.m. Also showing Friday and Saturday, March 6th and 7th at 7 p.m. with a Friday fish fry option at 5 p.m. for $15. And the finale is Sunday, March 8th at 3 p.m. Seats $10 online at Eventbrite and $15 at the door, and only $5 on community night, Thursday, February 27th. Purchase your tickets locally at Torrance's House of Threads, Rise and Grind Cafe, Confectionately Yours at the Sherman Phoenix, Coffee Makes You Black, and Milwaukee Marshall High School. Raise the bar, believe, achieve, receive. We Are the Drum, presented by Capitol Production.
Hey folks, this is Darcy Haber from Solidarity Realty. You know I usually like to joke, but there is nothing funny about what's at stake in this year's elections. Thanks to this station owner's using his own life savings and more, we in Wisconsin have an important tool we haven't had in the past to help us win. Mike Crute has bought and built 4 progressive talk radio stations that together cover almost half of Wisconsin's population. But radio stations are expensive and generally don't turn a profit for several years. In the meantime, this debt cannot and should not all sit on Crute's shoulders. Right now, we need to crowdfund Resistance Radio to keep it on the airwaves. Thanks to all who have already donated, we have raised nearly $10,000. The goal is $60,000. I know we can do it. Please help support Progressive Radio in Wisconsin today by going to GoFundMe, searching for Resistance Radio Wisconsin, and giving what you can. Together, we can keep Resistance Radio on the air and defeat Donald Trump.
The Devil's Advocates may not agree on much, but funny is funny.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Maggie Dawn filling in for Diamond Crude on the Devil's Advocates Radio here on Wisconsin's Political Talk Network, 1017 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison. You can hopefully make me funnier and fill in for Mike and Dom by calling or texting at 844-967-2789. We'd finished up the last segment by my trying to link together, what we're seeing is the politicization of what should be in a well-functioning democracy, and in any administration, Republican or Democratic, the politicization of many decisions and issues that should be entirely left to experts in government and should be free of politics. One of the Republican talking points constantly is, well, he's the commander in chief and they're all in his, direct reporting line, and so he can tell them what to do. Yes, of course that's true. But the CEO of any business, particularly large businesses, doesn't tell some low-level HR director whether or not to fire Jimmy who works, sweeping up at night. And we have the equivalent of, let alone Jimmy who sweeps up at night that happened to hear about a murder plot who responds to a criminal subpoena and tells, investigators what he knows. Oh, yeah, the CEO is now saying Jimmy, the sweeper-upper, has got to go. We have sort of the equivalent of that many, many of the decisions, which in all prior modern American administrations, Republican or Democratic, were left to the subject matter experts. Remember the weather chart, right? Where Trump took the marker and drew in Alabama because he had said on Twitter that Alabama could get hit. That shouldn't be happening. The President of the United States, ally or not, should not be interfering in the sentencing recommendations for a prosecution of a man convicted on all 7 counts of jury tampering, intimidation, and obstruction of Congress, and a whole manner of things. It's just not done. The president's, coronavirus czar, who is Mike Pence, who has no business managing any public health epidemic, should not be telling all of the frontline high-level experts from the CDC and DHHS that if they want to say anything publicly, they have to run it past the vice president's office. That's just not how it's done. The chairman of the Federal Reserve should not be dropping interest rates because the president is worried about his electability for his mishandling to date of this coronavirus epidemic. The Attorney General should not, and never did in any prior administration, distort what a special counsel's office investigated and concluded before sharing that special counsel's report 2 months ahead of time to benefit the president politically. Mark from Brownsville, buddy, what do you got for us this afternoon? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Maggie, how are you?
I'm hanging in there. My head's exploding all the time.
When you started talking about Pence and the coronavirus, suddenly my mind drifted to Dominic driving Miss Daisy to the bar in Minnesota tonight.
Would the Miss Daisy here be Mike Crudy?
I hope your cohorts in crime are behaving and just doing Shirley Temples or something, going to Minnesota tonight. But my heart goes out to you for having to put the whole thing on your shoulders in their absence, but you're doing a good job. And I was looking through some old photos, trying to figure out where I had met you, and I think it was 4 years ago this week, maybe at the state convention. Were you there?
That sounds like a very distinct possibility.
I won't send it to you yet, but I did find it, and I knew we had met and talked somewhere before, and I appreciated your advocacy way back then. I'm sorry it took so long to make that connection, but we're anxiously watching the results tonight. I'm sure you are also. Any predictions?
Wow, that's an interesting one. Thanks so much for the shout out, Mark. I appreciate it. Do send the photo along. I love the Wayback Machine. I was much thinner then, so yeah, that'd be great.
You can text it to the same number you're calling it on, 844-967-2789.
Thanks, Mark. Predictions. Wow, I don't really think of myself in the prediction business, except where I think the likelihood of certain outcomes is pretty high. I think the likelihood of this outcome is that Bernie Sanders picks up a significant number of delegates. I think because Buttigieg and Klobuchar and Steyer waited so long to drop out, we're going to see somewhat distorted results because of the huge number of early voters, particularly in California and Texas, where the early vote numbers in California are around 1.5 million and in Texas around 1 million. The one thing that is predictable about this race is that its dynamics change almost within 24-hour periods of time. So that's what I will predict. I think there might be some surprises in terms of Biden's showing in certain places. But remember, when we start looking at the delegate counts and the percentages of votes, assume for a moment that, let's say, even conservatively, I would say 3/4 of the voters for Buttigieg, Klobuchar, and Steyer would go to Biden had they dropped out earlier. What does that tell you about the breakdowns? The last thing I want to see is a brokered convention. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it means that one candidate doesn't clearly get a majority. So when someone says a majority, that means at least 51%. And they might get a plurality, which means they get more votes than any other candidate. But hey, is that really a mandate? Does that mean that candidate really truly speaks for the Democratic Party? I don't really think it does. I think we should be asking for minimally a majority of the delegates out of the DNC convention. My preference would be to see a supermajority of the delegates supporting very clearly one candidate coming out of our convention. So we'll stay tuned on that, and I'll explain a little bit when we come back. And Mark from the SAC, if you hang on, buddy, I'll get to you after the break. Why that makes super delegates so gosh darn important in the upcoming convention. So stay tuned. It is Maggie Dawn filling in for Donald Crude on Devil's Advocates on Wisconsin's Political Talk. Join us, call or text 844-967-2789. Back with more in a moment.
Want to be more presidential? Tweet the Devil's Advocates at Devil Radio.
What's your prediction? Prediction? Yes, prediction.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on Talk 1017 FM. Weekdays, you can hear the Santita Jackson Show from 6 to 8 a.m. Next, it's the Earl Ingram Show from 8 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Matt Flynn Direct. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. At 6, it's Busted Pencils, Brandy Grayson, and Maggie Dawn. And at 7, it's Democracy Now! Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at talk1017fm.com.
Hi, everybody. My name is Santita Jackson. Please join me on my new morning drive show on Talk 1017 in Milwaukee and Talk 92.7 in Madison. This show is political. It's personal. It's about you, and you. It's about us. So let's get together weekdays at 6 a.m. Central on the Santita Jackson Show on Talk 1017 in Milwaukee and Talk 92.7 in Madison.
You are listening to WRRD Waukesha and W269DL Milwaukee, always streaming at talk1017fm.com.
From the Capitol in Madison, this is Wiz Politics Midday.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Pobletti, and our report for Tuesday, March 3rd is brought to you by Spectrum. U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren is now the third presidential candidate to run TV ads in Wisconsin, going up with spots that take shots at rival Mike Bloomberg and feature former President Barack Obama praising her. But first, Chairman Ron Johnson plans to have the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee vote to subpoena documents related to Hunter Biden's role on the board of Ukrainian energy company Burisma. In a Sunday letter to committee members, the Oshkosh Republican said he's seeking records for Blue Star Strategies, a public relation firm run by former Clinton administration officials that Johnson said served as a representative for Burisma in the United States. Johnson alleges the panel has received records indicating Blue Star, quote, sought to leverage Hunter Biden's role as a board member of Burisma to gain access to and potentially influence matters at the State Department. The panel's top Dem, Senator Gary Peters of Michigan, objected to the move, citing concerns that it, quote, could be used to further disinformation efforts by Russia and other actors. Dems have highlighted a lack of evidence of wrongdoing by either Biden or his father, who on Saturday won a sweeping victory in the South Carolina Dem presidential primary. Additionally, Johnson's office says he has signed a blue slip to clear the way for Brett Ludwig's nomination to the Eastern District of Wisconsin to move forward. Senate tradition requires both home state senators of a nominee to return their blue slips for a judicial nomination to proceed. A spokeswoman for Senator Tammy Baldwin said the Madison Republican will be briefed and act on her blue slip after the Senate Judiciary Committee completes its review of Ludwig's nominee questionnaire and FBI background check. Finally, Warren's campaign said the ads are running in Madison, Milwaukee, but declined to say how much they're putting behind the buy. One spot shows clips from Bloomberg's TV spots, as Warren tells viewers they've probably seen more ads from the former New York mayor than the rest of the presidential field combined.
Big money is powerful, but it doesn't always win. I know that firsthand. When I ran against an incumbent Republican to take a U.S. Senate seat away from Mitch McConnell, Bloomberg endorsed the Republican, and he raised big money for him. But I beat him anyway.
The other spot features comments from Obama praising Warren in 2010 after he appointed her to oversee the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. For WisPolitics Midday, sponsored by Spectrum, I'm Pat Pobletti.
This has been WisPolitics Midday. For more state government and political news, visit wispolitics.com.
Hi, this is Mark Nice, a retiree of Teamsters Local 200, and I want to remind you that your vote matters. The 40-hour work week, overtime pay, and benefits all started with your vote. Your vote matters. Right now, there's legislation sitting in the Senate to save our pensions, and it will not pass unless we elect people who will pass it. Your vote matters. This is how we defeated one of the most anti-labor governors in America. Stay informed, vote locally, vote in every election. Your vote matters.
The tall and tall of political talk, the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Maggie Dawn. You are listening to Dawn of the Resistance, except not. It's the Devil's Advocates Radio. I'm sitting in for Mike and Dom, who are en route or recently arrived and setting up in Minneapolis to give you live Super Tuesday results as they start rolling in at 7 o'clock. You are, of course, listening to Wisconsin's Political Talk at 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison. You can join us at 844-967-2789. I have been bemoaning all of the many ways that the basic detail, nerdy, wonky operations of government have been totally, and for the first time in modern American history, completely politicized and hijacked by this American president. One of them is this idea that the Fed is now another arm of Donald Trump's political campaign, and that the Fed, apparently by Trump's direction or because he's so freaked out about his mishandling of the coronavirus, is going to drop interest rates an unprecedented 0.5 percentage point. Let's go to Mark for Prairie du Sac. Hey, buddy, how you doing this afternoon?
Well, doing okay. It's and you're right. I mean, some of the stuff should be insulated from politics, and just done basically by the subject matter experts. But it just goes to show that that some of these guys, I don't know about Jerome Powell, but especially Bill Barr, has been a political animal since the late '80s at least. When he arranged the pardoning of drug lord Oliver North, and I say that intentionally because I continue to get calls from the NRA about that, and I say, well, you've got a drug lord working for you now. I mean, Oliver North dealt with major criminals in setting up his little Iran-Contra scheme, and that's something that Bill Barr chose to find worthy of pardon, and that who knows what he's doing today. I mean, Bill Barr is supposed to do the law, and that he's not. And I mean, as far as you brought up Roger Stone and witness intimidation. My question is, what would have happened if Roger Stone was strong-arming somebody? That person took physical action against Roger Stone and just laid him out on his back, with a baseball bat. If that person would be charged when he's Roger Stone's committing a crime, trying to intimidate somebody, and how far?
And they use the remedy of self. Yeah, they use the remedy of what's called self-help. Yeah, self-defense.
Self-help. I mean, in Wisconsin, you're supposed to be able to use deadly force when you feel threatened or feel bodily threatened. I mean that I just, and not that I approve of that, but I mean that here we have Roger Stone probably going to get away with witness intimidation. I mean, and that you're not intimidating witnesses unless you know damn well you're guilty of something. And you're defending somebody who is guilty of probably a lot in defending Donald Trump. And it is just, it's not surprising that Donald Trump is able to use the levers of power to further himself.
And it's interesting, Mark, that you make all these super excellent points. And one of the things that I'd like to remind people of is that within government structures, we have a system that is supposed to protect longtime public servants and subject matter experts who are responsible for the basically apartisan or nonpartisan functioning of the really critical government apparatuses that we all rely upon. And it's called the civil service system. And I won't hesitate to remind everybody listening that the Republicans in Wisconsin proposed eliminating the civil service system in the state government. It basically makes everyone de facto a political animal. Trust me when I say this is the last thing that you ever want to happen. There are improvements to the civil service system that we should and in many ways are making. But even people who are appointed, particularly in the federal government, appointees go down a number of levels into the executive branch agencies. You want those people who you want people to put their hands up to get appointed to those roles who are experts in these things. And Donald Trump has largely undone that. Mark, I got to move on. We got a lot of folks interested in our discussion this afternoon. As always, my friend from Prairie du Sac, thank you so much for calling. Wisco Paul, my brother, what do you got for us?
Thanks for taking my call, Maggie. Got big shoes to fill today, but you're doing a nice job.
Well, one pair of big shoes, one pair of comparatively small shoes. Sorry.
Oh, boy. I'm not getting into that argument. I'm staying out of that one.
I got 16s. They're all good.
That's too funny. Hey, anyway, tonight, I'll be watching tonight, and I'm afraid I might have to look for a different candidate tomorrow because Elizabeth Warren, I don't know, she's kind of on thin ice. That being said, what I would like to know is, not my Senator Johnson, is back to investigating Joe Biden's son. And this has to be political reasons. Do these people fear Biden that much? Or, I mean, can you explain to me what in the heck is going on there? Thanks for taking my call, Maggie.
Of course, Paul, nice to hear your voice. So one of the things that Republicans are really good at that in my opinion, Democrats, amongst other things, are really terrible at is multi-pronged strategies. They do not put all of their eggs in one basket, and they think beyond the immediate short term. That means that while many Republicans, I think, are praying and hoping that Sanders becomes the nominee because they believe that will almost guarantee that there will be no moderate or swing voters that will go the Sanders way. They believe that will nearly guarantee a Trump victory. You got Paul Ryan saying that Sanders is the nominee will virtually guarantee that Dems lose the House in 20. I mean, these are things that are being talked about. Republicans are also opening up the playbook for, let's assume it is a Joe Biden nominee. And so we need to start the mudslinging and the misdirection and the false equivalency playbook on Joe Biden as well. And remember, I've said this numerous times on my show, and let me be very clear that, at least in my mind, one of the top 3 Donald Trump branded strategies are the following. Number 1, lie. Number 2, deny. Maybe top 4 strategies. Number 1 is lie. Number 2 is to deny. Number 3 is the doctrine of false equivalency. But Benghazi, but Hillary. These are not equivalent. If you want to even call them wrongdoings, they're not equivalent wrongdoings. So lie, deny, false equivalency, and then just the distraction. It's like, well, then it's not about that. It's about this other thing over here. Please look at the shiny keys, as if the American electorate was a small baby. The more that we allow those things to happen, the more the journalists fail to ask the follow-up question or to simply say that answer is not responsive to my question. We're not talking about X. We're talking about Y. Please answer the question about Y. It lets them get away with it. So is it politically motivated? Of course it is. Of course it is. And so is all the support that you see in the trolling that was being done in South Carolina, to no effect, I might add, to try to get Republicans to enter that open primary and vote for Bernie Sanders. Alan from Indiana, how are you, my friend, and what would you like to say?
I'm good. Thank you for taking my call. Well, just kind of tying in with what you were saying as far as like the electability thing, they are obviously going to use every ploy that they can to tarnish whoever it is. I think Joe Biden himself is probably the most vulnerable to this.
Do you really? Can I ask you? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well,
I just want to ask you a question about that, and then I'll let you finish your thought.
Did he or did he not? Sorry, did he or did he not say a couple weeks ago that he was going to nominate a black Supreme Court justice?
Joe Biden? I don't.
I
don't know. Would your point be that that's what?
It should be Anita Hill.
Oh gosh,
it's going to be a thing.
Wouldn't that be a great gift? Hashtag I believe Anita Hill.
Well, exactly. That's the whole thing. They've got so much baggage on Joe. Like the thing about saying that he got arrested going to visit Mandela.
Yeah.
A week ago.
Joe is a gaffe machine, and he's made mistakes. I agree. Yeah.
Well, and he can't back him up anymore.
Yeah.
He makes gaffes that are just so random.
Yeah,
and
he is a gaffe machine.
If he's on stage one-on-one with Trump is going to eat him alive. It's going to be ugly.
I don't know about that. Like, there are moments where I think they're both like a little disconnect. Maybe they'll have a moment talking about their like gramophones or whatever. I mean, here's what I think this largely comes down to. I don't think voters get particularly moved by debates unless there's just outstanding wins or outstanding failures. In other words, it has to be by a really big margin. I'm not sure if you would see that here. One of the things that concerns me, and my question to you, and I apologize for interrupting, Alan, is this. Which series of ads do you think are more problematic? Because I think we have to start to talk about the reality where the ads for Sanders would be clips of him saying things in support of the Castro regime. It would be newspaper headlines of him having spent a considerable amount of time in Moscow while it was still the USSR. I think it would be other statements.
Was he in Moscow?
He did. I don't know if it was St. Petersburg. Go ahead.
Yeah, he honeymooned over there like once, and there was a sister city for his city, so they had some there was some back and forth, but
right. I mean, and I agree with you that I agree that there are reasons and very good explanations for Senator Sanders' trips there, but that's not how ads play out, right? Like, ads are framed to be the most distortive, manipulative, and inflammatory stuff that you can see. And to me, I don't think you can sort of say, well, Bernie's socialist history is going to be more or less painful than Joe's gaffes. I think that some of their problematic pasts, once you put them into the Republican spin machine and their advertising juggernaut, we're going to take some lumps either way. I'm not sure we can make a decision about whether. I don't know that I would make a decision, I guess I'm saying, based upon how the ads are going to play.
The policy things are different, though, because you've got Joe Biden on policy issues that are going to be things that Trump's going to beat him up on. Same thing with Hillary, Iraq war.
And you don't think that that's true on Bernie? I mean, I think Trump goes all day long, forever and ever, on free college for all and Medicare for all and stealing people's private insurance. But these are all the really important points, Alan, and I think please know that regardless whomever that nominee is, I will be supporting the Democratic nominee. Alan, my thanks to you. You're calling in way from Indiana. Keep listening, brother. Appreciate it. We got Steve from Charlottesville in Virginia who just voted for Joe Biden. Steve.
Listening on WPVC 94.7, the progressive voice of Charlottesville.
Thanks so much for joining us, Steve.
Hey.
What do you got for us?
Okay, so I have been in every single person's camp. I think Elizabeth Warren would destroy Trump on a debate stage.
You have my total agreement on that, Steve. She would house him.
Same thing with Klobuchar. But the problem is I don't think that nobody's mind is going to be changed after the debate stage. And so where I think that we have to go is we can't make things any more divided than they are right now. And all I can hear for the next 6 months, 8 months is socialist, socialist, socialist when it comes to Biden. I mean, when it comes to
Bernie.
to Sanders.
Yeah.
And so, to Bernie. And so really the only safe bet is Biden. And really, Bloomberg needs to just go ahead and step out, because right now he can't support Sanders because he's already said enough things that he does not support Sanders. So he needs to take all of his money and just put it behind Biden now and open up the lane.
Steve, you should become a political strategist. From your lips to God's ears, buddy, I'm on board with all of what you just said. And good luck to you out there in Virginia. Thanks for listening. Keep rocking it out for the Democrats, no matter who our nominee eventually is. Thanks for listening, Steve. At the end some game, I think part of what we have to be talking about is downside risk. And what I mean by that is this could go really badly for Dems, and I think the likelihood of an extreme bad event is frankly lower with Joe Biden as the nominee. I got to go to a quick break. We'll be back to close out the hour. I'm Maggie Dawn. You're listening to a special edition of Devil's Advocates Radio on Wisconsin's Political Talk, 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison. We're finally going to hit up Steve Mnuchin when we come back. Call or text us, 844-967-2789. That's 844-967-2789.
Democracy matters, especially when it is inconvenient.
Beating Donald Trump is my life's mission. Winning Wisconsin is the key. We built a progressive Wisconsin talk radio network to do just that. Now I need your help. I need money to complete the mission. Beat Donald Trump. Support progressive radio. Give now at GoFundMe, Resistance Radio Wisconsin, or find the Support the Station link on any of our websites. I can't do it alone. Thank you for your help.
Elections create conversations. Taking the conversation to the ballot box is how we create a stronger future. Hi, I'm Demetri McClain, a member of Teamsters Local 200, and Milwaukee is my hometown. And just like Waukesha, Oconomowoc, Madison, the middle class is the backbone of my hometown. The conversation to restore and strengthen it begins with us. Your vote matters. To register and find out what's on your ballot, go to myvote.wi.gov.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and my family owns Madison Liquidators. Have you ever shopped for office furniture and been completely blown away by the prices? So have I. In Madison, your choices end up being big box stores with inexpensive pieces that fall apart when you look at them the wrong way, or high-end interior design quality furniture that costs as much as a car. That is why my family and I set out to start an office furniture store with a different philosophy and 3 main goals. Get our clients the quality office furniture they need at the prices they can afford, divert sound office furniture from the landfill, and develop relationships with small businesses within our community and help them grow. At Madison Liquidators, you will not be quoted our most expensive pieces up front and scaled back from there. We will work with you within your budget to allocate funds where it counts. We're interested in getting you the most bang for your buck every time. If you see something you like but it's outside your budget, let us know. We always have ideas to help make it work for you. Call me today and let's get started, or visit our website at madisonliquidators.com.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Maggie Dawn, filling in for Dom and Crute, who are in Minnesota, and we'll lead off our post-Super Tuesday returns coverage starting at 7 o'clock on Wisconsin's Political Talk. You can listen to me every week, Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 live on this very same station, 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison. My friend Steve from Charlottesville, you had a couple more thoughts for us, and I thought since you're calling in from out of state, right where the action's going down on this Super Tuesday, wanted to hear more from you, Steve. Here you go, buddy. What do you have to say?
Well, thank you. I think that, most of Trump supporters are single issue voters, and so they care about gun issues or they care about, abortion issues. And I have in-laws, and it wouldn't matter what Trump says or does, as long as he is pro-life, it doesn't matter. And so when it comes down to these debates, I don't think that anything matters at all. It doesn't matter if Warren gets up there and Elizabeth could destroy him and make him look like nothing. But when it comes down to it, none of those Trump supporters are going to leave their stuff. And so I have to go with Biden, and I made that decision last night. I've been in Yang's corner, I've been in Warren's corner, I've been in every single person's corner.
Is your
Because
primary
everybody has a good place.
is the fundamental thing that's motivating your vote today whom you think is best positioned to beat Donald Trump, or who has the greatest likelihood of being able to defeat Donald Trump? Is that the biggest?
It is at first. Well, at first I wanted to vote with who I love what Sanders has to stand for, and I love college, free college, all that kind of stuff. I just don't know that we can make such a drastic change right now, and I don't think that he has those people in Congress that can support him to get what's done. So I think the best way to get Trump out of there right now is to vote somebody that, some of these older moderates, my mom included, other people, that are more comfortable with Biden.
Well, thanks again so much for your call, Steve. Keep listening out there, and the struggle is real. My best advice to folks is Bernie or Biden, drag your buddies to the polls. Thanks so much for your call, Steve. We'll talk to you on the flip side, brother. Jake from Eureka, California.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Jake from Eureka, California. Is this 1480 KOG, our affiliate out there?
KGOE, yeah.
KGOE. Hey, Jake, what do you got for us this afternoon? Thanks for calling in.
Hey, well, first of all, I wanted to say, vote for blue no matter who, but my choice is Elizabeth Warren. She's, first of all, the most intelligent candidate running. In debates, we saw what she did to Michael Bloomberg. Imagine what she'd do to Donald Trump. She would destroy him. She has the best plans. And I think, other than Joe Biden, she's probably the most qualified candidate for the office. And it's time that we have a woman as president. And she will do what Hillary Clinton didn't do. She will take Donald Trump down. Hillary tried to play that tightrope of trying to be likable when she really wasn't too likable. Elizabeth Warren doesn't care. Elizabeth Warren's going to take Donald Trump down. That's what we need to do in order to win. We need to go after him unapologetically.
Yeah, one of your interesting points, Jake, is, Hillary failed on the likability scale, and I think the reason that she failed there is that she was trying to be likable. The more I hear from Hillary, and she's got a podcast that apparently is going to kick off sometime this spring, the more I hear about the Hillary unedited, unvarnished, totally doing Hillary, the more honest she is, the more upfront she is, the less sort of manicured and double talky she is. And frankly, I think she gets more likable. And the interesting point there is a woman who, obviously talks about politics and economics and government on the radio and with my friends all the time, normalizing that idea that women have a voice and can speak candidly and honestly, which is something that I think Elizabeth Warren does, coupled with a lot of passion, makes the political debate so much more powerful. What do you think, Jake?
Oh, absolutely. Elizabeth Warren, she is extremely passionate. She means what she says, and she has the track record to prove it. She's actually taken on Wall Street. She's taken on the financial industry, and she has won. So that is the person we need to run for president as the Democratic Party. Elizabeth Warren, she will win.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with her. Thanks so much for the call, Jake. And let me just say, and maybe this is me being a little personally biased, I worked on Wall Street for a very long time for a huge law firm. I consider myself to be a person that can speak with an incredible amount of insider's knowledge about that. I know what's wrong. I know where the rot is. Elizabeth Warren used to be a Republican, and she sort of had her own enlightenment about that and came out, rabidly, going after Wall Street, creating the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which Donald Trump is now going to be before the Supreme Court to turn into what? Yet another political hatchet job, and got that organization who has saved taxpayers billions and billions, not beans and beans, billions and billions of dollars. We got just a couple of more minutes here before we have to go to break. If I don't get to you and you are on hold, please stay on hold and we will revisit you after the break. But my buddy Kurt from Madison, what do you have for us this afternoon?
Well, the caller just before me, I couldn't agree with them more. But when discussing dirt to be thrown out by the Republicans, if it's between Bernie and Biden, I'm going to just simply have to say Bernie has been saying the same message for over 30 years. You can try to dig up the stuff and saying socialist. You can't be a Russian and a socialist at the same time. Unlike Biden has very bad myopic choices. His son involvement in Ukraine, that is the weak link. And that's what they're going to use to hit him over the head with over and over again.
So
I'd rather take my odds with Bernie.
Yeah, I get that.
Biden.
Let me just ask, can I ask you a thought experiment question? So we're going to suspend our individual beliefs. Imagine yourselves as a white, suburban, educated woman who's very middle of the road. Do you which thing bothers you more? I guess that's one of the hypothetical questions that I'm trying to figure out. And I don't know really what the answer is. Does the ad about Hunter Biden in Ukraine bother you more than an ad that talks about and misconstrues and it is inflammatory, just like, political ads are, about Bernie's background and affinity towards socialism? What do you think the answer to that is?
Well, to be honest, I'm going to stick with what I said.
Okay.
The damage is going to be very effective by using the Ukraine line because it's near and dear to everybody's very short-term memory. Whereas with Bernie, you're going to have to dig really hard and go long and have to go after him from some time he was in Russia many years ago.
Yeah. I think it's a great question. Thank you so much for Kurt. We got to scoot to break here. Anthony from Madison, hang with me, brother. I will get to you in a moment. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? And I'm specifically talking about how successful do we think the ad is? How punchy do we think the attack ad is? Biden versus Bernie. And the muckraking that Republicans will do. Which do you think is going to hurt the Democratic Party more, particularly down-ticket Democrats? Particularly Democrats in the House running in purple districts or in the Senate? I think that's a really critical question. Stick with us. Back with more in a moment on Wisconsin's Political Talk.
If politics is boring, you're doing it wrong. Check out more at domandcroot.com.
Dom, the Devil's Advocates are going on an adventure.
Join Crute and I for our inaugural 420-2020 celebration from our friends at Expedia Cruise Ship Centers of Madison. Our political party runs for 7 nights over the 420 holiday in sunny and cannabis-legal California. The Hilton La Jolla Torrey Pines is near the beach, boasting a world-class golf course, and is just a few minutes drive from downtown San Diego.
Expedia prices, local service. Visit them on Madison's west side off Mineral Point Road or Google Expedia Cruise Ship Centers Madison.
More power, more fight, the most heart. Gingras, Thompson & Walks is more than a law firm. We're family. We believe in doing our best to help people in need and right the wrong that's occurred. For more than 35 years, we've helped thousands of clients across the state of Wisconsin get the justice they deserve. Our proven track record of success isn't based solely on our knowledge of the judicial system. Rather, we make it our priority to get to know our clients and their cases so we can best represent them. Gingras, Thompson & Walks. Find us online at gtwlawyers.com. You are listening to WRRD Waukesha and W269DL Milwaukee, always streaming at talk1017fm.com.
Deciding Super Tuesday, more coronavirus deaths. I'm Mike Moss. Campaigning in delegate-rich California today, Joe Biden is hoping to get at least 15% of the vote in order to win delegates and eat away at Bernie Sanders' lead. And on this Super Tuesday, correspondent Ryan Noble says frontrunner Sanders is feeling the heat.
This race is likely to become a head-to-head matchup, and this is something they've been preparing for from the very beginning. And in fact, the campaign sending a memo to its supporters saying that they're prepared for that head-to-head matchup, and they're specifically prepared for it to be against Joe Biden.
Washington State reports 9 deaths among its 27 coronavirus cases. The CDC's Dr. Nancy Messonnier has poured over data from China.
Older people and people with underlying health conditions like heart disease, lung disease, and diabetes, for example, were about twice as likely to develop serious outcomes versus otherwise younger, healthier people.
Nashville's in shambles after a string of tornadoes killed 22 this morning.
Kind of hit in the middle of the night, and you just heard the pool just start to shake up. And then when you looked outside, it was just like total carnage. So we were walking around the whole area, and like this whole town is just kind of torn up right now.
48 buildings destroyed. Many others suffered major damage. The Fed issued an emergency 0.5% cut in interest rates as it tries to counter the economic impact of the coronavirus. Correspondent Allison Cossack.
This is a way for the Fed to go ahead and try to make an impact to lower borrowing costs for businesses and consumers, just in case the coronavirus impacts the economy, causes the economy to deteriorate.
The chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee are asking the Trump administration to declassify information on the death of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi and the U.S. intelligence community's assessment of who was behind it. The Dow was down 785. I'm Mike Moss.
Beating Donald Trump is my life's mission. Winning Wisconsin is the key. We built a progressive Wisconsin talk radio network to do just that. Now I need your help. I need money to complete the mission. Beat Donald Trump. Support progressive radio. Give now at GoFundMe Resistance Radio Wisconsin, or find the Support the Station link on any of our websites. I can't do it alone. Thank you for your help.
Hi, this is Mark Nice, a retiree of Teamsters Local 200, and I want to remind you that your vote matters. The 40-hour work week, overtime pay, and benefits all started with your vote. Your vote matters. Right now, there's legislation sitting in the Senate to save our pensions, and it will not pass unless we elect people who will pass it. Your vote matters. This is how we defeated one of the most anti-labor governors in America. Stay informed, vote locally, vote in every election. Your vote matters.
New York's second coronavirus case is raising fears the deadly disease is being spread through the community. Correspondent Bryn Gingras is in New York with details on the patient.
50-year-old man from Westchester County here in New York City. We've learned he is a lawyer who worked in Midtown Manhattan. Now, the mayor says that he was showing symptoms on and off for the past month, but those symptoms became more serious just within the last week or so. That's when actually last week he was admitted to the hospital, and it became even more serious. He's been transferred to a hospital here in New York City where he currently is in serious condition.
The 189 Nation International Monetary Fund and its sister lending organization, the World Bank, say they'll replace their regular spring meetings in Washington with a virtual format in response to the virus. The two lending organizations normally hold an annual spring meeting in D.C., where both have headquarters. This year's meeting had been scheduled for the week of April 13th. I'm Mike Moss.
When it comes to politics, Wisconsin's Political Talk Network takes you there, live, to the debate stage, to the convention floor, to the rallies, to the marches, to the halls of Congress. Hear history as it happens, live on the radio. Mandatory listening. Wisconsin's Political Talk Network, because politics matters.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
Scott Walker tweeting out from a La Quinta in a Rancho del Solio Ronald Reagan fashion shirt.
You know,
only
as a
available
guy who's
online.
wearing a Bernie Sanders shirt, how can you
Mine's
rip on a
bootleg.
guy for wearing a Ronald Reagan shirt?
Buddy, I got a Bernie bootleg on. This is cool on so many levels. You don't even know how cool I am.
I do not. If it could just be a little tighter.
For 101.7 Milwaukee and 92.7 Madison, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. A Dane County Circuit Judge has resigned from his leadership post and says the plan by the conservative Chief Justice of Wisconsin's Supreme Court to add a commercial court in Dane County is, quote, a direct threat to the independence of our judiciary, unquote. Circuit Judge Richard Neese, Dane County's presiding civil judge, resigned in protest and wrote in a letter that, under the commercial court program, special business interests will collaborate with the Chief Justice to handpick the judges they want to decide their cases. He said the program would create a two-tiered system of justice, one for the privileged few and one for the rest of us. Outside tonight, partly cloudy, lows around 30 degrees. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with highs in the low 40s. You are tuned in to Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome, everybody. It's not Dom and Crute, it's Maggie Dawn of the Dawn of the Resistance fame, which you can hear Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 p.m. on this very station, 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 FM Madison. You can join the conversation this afternoon at 844-967-2789. Again, that's 844-967-2789. Dom and Crute will be with you this afternoon starting at 7 o'clock for the Super Tuesday returns that will be rolling in live from Minneapolis, also broadcasting live at one of our AM affiliates in Minneapolis. So stay tuned for that. You got a full afternoon of programming for your listening enjoyment. So we've been talking about, which one would pose a bigger hack job advertising problem for Democrats, Bernie or Biden. I think there's some soft underbelly for both candidates. Anthony, not sure for Madison, not sure if you want to weigh in on that or a different topic, but please feel free to do so. And eventually I will get to the Steve Mnuchin taking out to the woodshed that happened earlier today in Washington, D.C. But Anthony, my friend, what do you have for us?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for taking my call. I don't know if I want to touch the Biden or Bernie ad wars versus Trump. I just wanted to call in because you had two callers, kind of three callers right before me that were kind of blue no matter who. And I'm not feeling blue no matter who. I'm a black Wisconsinite. None of these candidates speak to my issues. I've known Biden for, I've researched his entire history from 75 on. Bernie doesn't talk about black issues. He's a class-based guy. He thinks that class can solve race.
Which it can't. Yeah.
It cannot, and his only response is class-based policy, class-based policy, class-based policy, and he ignores our issues at every turn.
How do you
Joe
think
Biden is responsible for? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. And I want you to finish your critique of these folks. And my question to you is, how do you think we, as folks that may be more inclined to vote for a Democrat, can force both Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders to talk about issues that are important to the black community? Can we do that, and how do we do that?
Yeah, you can do that. You can start asking them about reparations. I don't understand this liberal idea that you can have Medicare for all, not even Medicare for every American citizen, but Medicare for every person in the country.
Yeah.
You can have free college for every American citizen,
no matter how wealthy.
No matter how wealthy. In the case of Joe Biden, there's a reduced cost for college. You can do student loan forgiveness, but you can't pay the debt that you owe to the people that put you in office for the last 60 years.
Yeah.
It's deeply offensive to me that liberals will not support black people in the way that black people support liberals and progressives and Democrats.
I totally agree with you, Anthony. That has been a one-sided relationship for far too long. I think
this election is going to prove that relationship is no longer going to be one-sided. We're not going to come out and vote for candidates that do not support us in the way that we support those candidates. It's not going to happen anymore.
So Joe
Biden won South Carolina in pretty convincing fashion. When it comes down to the general election, we're not coming out for him.
Yeah, my question to you is this. Do you think the black community does better under a Trump presidency?
I think that's a false. I think that's a false equivalent. I think
why we're going to end up with a binary choice, and your choice will be Donald Trump or whoever the Democratic candidate is. And if you're telling me that you won't show up for Bernie or Joe Biden, then de facto you're saying I think I'm going to be better off with a Trump presidency.
I'm going to explain to you why that's a false choice for black people specifically.
Okay.
That may not be a false choice for white voters, but black voters didn't put Trump in office. So it's not our responsibility to come and remove him from office. What white voters need to do is they need to talk to their sisters who voted for Trump at 53%. They need to talk to their brothers who voted for Trump at 58%. They need to talk to their mothers and their fathers. It's not our responsibility to clean up white America's mess.
Yeah,
you all made this problem, not us, and you can't rely on us to come and save you every time.
I totally
without giving us the benefit of policy that significantly changes our lives.
So I am both agreeing with you, but I'm trying to also push you into the next level of debate here, which is I totally agree with you. I think the black community should be demanding some pretty specific things from any candidate, whether it's dog catcher to mayor to city attorney to president to attorney in Wisconsin, we elect our attorney general, as you well know. All these folks should be forced to respond to the concerns and issues of the black community in specifics. I think Elizabeth Warren has provided probably the most specific platform on these issues. I think it is right for every American who believes in social justice and equity, particularly solving the racial cleft that has been the absolute beginning, middle, and current status quo of our country, to demand those things and to demand to have the discussion and place race right in the middle of all of that. And although you are certainly, I would never make the argument that I've heard from other folks left of center that, it's because black folks didn't show up in 2016. Well, no candidate was speaking to black issues. I can understand why black folks stayed home. But when you can see that the relative harm to communities may be perceived differently and your lived experiences can be differently, in other words, the magnitude of the acute negativity of the Trump administration and Trump policies are harming, I would argue, black and brown communities more, that they are creating a more racist culture that will be even harder to undo, doesn't that therefore lead to a different question? We can both say, I think it is unfair and ridiculous for white Dems to blame black voters for 2016. But I can also say that I believe it's our shared responsibility to be sure that we don't have 4 more years of it.
Here's the answer to your question. Yes, Trump is horrible. His tax cuts will devastate our community. His cuts to education, to food policy, to environmental policy, all of those are terrible. But what you can't say is that, hey, this candidate is slightly less racist than Trump, so you should vote for him. No, what I want is
But that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
No, I understand that's not what you're saying. But what I'm saying is that based on the records of the candidates who are running currently under the Democratic platform, none of those candidates speak to any of the issues that most affect the black community. So to give me a binary choice of, hey, this guy's awful and this guy is less awful.
I'm not giving you a binary choice. That is the fact. The fact is we will be left with a binary choice. And my argument isn't about less awful. My argument is that Trump is not just more awful. It is acutely terrible. It is so much more racist. The harm that is done by I'm not showing up for the polls in terms of the impact on black and brown communities is really acute and terrible.
You're absolutely right. So the answer to that question is to give black voters a choice that says, hey, not only are you the most reliable voting bloc in our party, but we're going to give you something for that vote. Not we're going to expect you to come out because this candidate is awful and you have to elect us
And
You have to
I
give
agree
up
with you.
something to get to the poll.
Yeah, I agree
And that's
with
not what's happening right now.
Yeah, and I agree with you about that, Anthony. My question is, if you're still faced with an imperfect choice, given the burdens and the terribly huge, outsized negative impact of Trump administration policies on the black community, I think that is a very dangerous proposition to say, you know, I'm simply not going to show up to vote. And I totally and wholeheartedly agree with you that race should be a central part of every Democratic debate. It should be a central part of every discussion that is being had this election season. And I wholeheartedly agree with you that black and brown communities should be demanding something of these candidates in exchange for their support. So much to talk about there, Anthony. We could do a whole 3 hours just on that, my friend. Thank you so much for coming in here and moving the dialogue along. I got to give a couple of minutes to my friend Sherry, who is calling in. Tony from Portland, hang with me. We're going to go to a break, but I will come back to you, my buddy. Sherry, what do you got for me this afternoon?
Hi there. Thanks for having us, Maggie. My name is Sherry Dubiel, and I'm the Executive Director of Community Shares of Wisconsin. And today, right now, as we speak, we are hosting a big online giving day called The Big Share. And you can find out more about it at thebigshare.org. And this is an online giving day specifically for nonprofits focused on social justice and environmental issues, which I know are issues that a lot of folks who are listeners to your program are interested in. And just to give you a quick overview, the Big Share represents about 70 different local nonprofits located mostly here in Dane County, Wisconsin. And these are groups that are working on creating systems change through policy action and through education. We have groups like the League of Women Voters, Wisconsin Democracy Campaign that are working to get people out to vote and to educate folks on how to access voter rights. We have groups like Sierra Club and Audubon Society working to improve our environment. We have groups like the Rape Crisis Center and End Domestic Abuse Wisconsin working on women's issues. So we have a whole host of issues. And if you go to thebigshare.org and search the groups that are available to donate to, we encourage you to give now. We actually, the official day ends at midnight, but we will continue to accept donations at thebigshare.org for the next week. And so for me, this day is a great celebration of the values of social justice and environmental issues. And I know that listeners to The Devil's Advocate are very interested in those issues. So we encourage you to find an opportunity to give back to the community and to support some of these awesome nonprofits that are working to make the community better.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sherry. You can find that website at bigshare.org. Stick with us. We're going to hear from Tony from Portland when we come back on this special edition of Devil's Advocates Radio on Wisconsin's Political Talk.
And that's where the big bucks start rolling in.
Elections create conversations. Taking the conversation to the ballot box is how we create a stronger future. Hi, I'm Demetri McClain, a member of Teamsters Local 200, and Milwaukee is my hometown. And just like Waukesha, Oconomowoc, Madison, the middle class is the backbone of my hometown. The conversation to restore and strengthen it begins with us. Your vote matters. To register and find out what's on your ballot, go to myvote.wi.gov.
Milwaukee is a great city with a great history and great architecture. You can take in Milwaukee's history and architecture while you partake in the delicious Wisconsin craft beer at Regano's Roman Coin on historic Brady Street. The Roman Coin was originally a Pabst Tide House built by Frederick Pabst in 1890 to sell Pabst beer. It was even designed by the same architect who designed the Pabst Theater. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's historic, pet-friendly, cash-only, order-in classic corner tavern. This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com.
Thanks to you, our listeners, Wisconsin's Political Talk Network continues to grow. Now, radio listeners in the Milwaukee area can hear WRRD on the FM dial at 101.7 FM 24 hours a day. Tune in when you're in the car, at home, or at work, because politics matters at Talk 101.7 FM.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
Mary, I love. Do it, baby.
Welcome back, everybody. We could talk about marijuana legalization for the rest of the time on here. Big fan of that.
Your next caller knows about that.
All uses. Tony from Portland, my man. We can talk about Mary Jane if you want, but anything's open for discussion this afternoon. Thanks for calling in, buddy.
Well, hey, sister.
Hey.
Well, for me, Biden, I mean, I've never been a fan of Biden. I've been Elizabeth Warren since she announced. And Biden, to me, is just, he brags about 50 years of experience, but I fail to see how he's benefited 90% of the population. He's always seemed to be a go-along to get along. I mean, the crime bill and the bankruptcy bill for student debt, that's all. Everybody I talk to that says, I'm just going to go for Biden, because it's a safe choice. And I asked them, well, what is he going to do? What's his policy? How is he going to change healthcare? He's going to run around the world and kiss ass to all of our allies and say, we're so sorry, we had no idea, it was our bad. And he'll do a great job of that, but what's he going to do for the 90%? I really feel like we're just going to have 4 years of we're not going to blow up.
So let me ask you a quick question here, Tony. First of all, I love Portland. Oh, my good Lord. One of my good friends lives out there. Very jealous. Enjoy the beautiful weather. Yeah, it's a great place to live.
Oh, yeah. It's 50 degrees, sunshine. I'm sitting in the park with my dog having a good time.
Awesome. So here's my question. I think that most of governance, particularly in sort of the modern executive power age, is really driven by the basic mechanics of government and a lot of the things that happen that aren't these huge sweeping pieces of legislation. Do you agree or disagree? Because I think the reality here is that very little of what Bernie has been running on is actually practically possible. He's laying out really nice ideas, but they simply won't be implementable.
Well, not as long as Mitch McConnell controls the Senate, that's for sure.
Yeah,
but the thing is that everybody keeps complaining. We just watched sweeping change for 3.5 years. We're at the point where people's heads are exploding because we're losing our democracy. We have a Justice Department that's in charge of getting political enemies. We have an environmental prevention agency now. You talk about sweeping change. Come on.
I think you're actually.
Why can't we go the other way?
Well,
why
I think
is that
you're
not
making.
Possible?
I think you're actually making my point for me really well, which is all of those sweeping changes were basically done without Congress, right? Even when Trump had the House, he could not get Obamacare repealed. And so my point about this is, Joe Biden was a senator. And then he was vice president. And remember that while he was vice president and sat in the executive branch, we got the largest piece of healthcare reform that's ever happened in this country actually through Congress. Most governmental policy changes happen largely by executive directive or executive order out of the White House. And I don't think between Bernie and Biden, they're going to just start reversing everything that Trump did and going further where they can. I don't think there's a huge differential between the two of them. I think that's one of the perhaps misnomers, simply because unless you've got both houses of Congress, you ain't getting nothing passed. Thanks so much for the call, Tony from Portland. Enjoy the 50-degree weather with your dog in the park. Pete from Milwaukee, what do you got for us?
Well,
I think that when you start saying that it can't be done, that's not a good idea, because if Obama would have said that, we would have never gotten Obamacare, because everybody seemed to be against it, but yet it got passed somehow.
Well, that's because Obama had both the House and Senate.
No.
Well, yes, as a practical matter.
It barely passed. Not one Republican voted for it.
Right, but that's why I'm saying to have the House, if you do not have both the House and Senate.
How do you know they're not going to have the House and Senate?
Because
they
I've
might
seen no
have those two.
I've seen no polling that indicates that that's likely. Now, could polls be proven wrong? Yes, of course. And I would sincerely hope that it becomes possible. But some of the things that Bernie Sanders is talking about, I think he would be very hard pressed to get moderate Democrats in purple districts to support. So I don't think, unlike with Obamacare, you could almost to a person count on the Dems voting together. I think that's the challenge, Pete.
Well, it is a challenge, but we've got to turn this ship. And if we don't get the ship started to turn, it's not going to make it, because we're running out of time. You can't keep going on many of these issues, including health care, and just trying to do little incremental changes along the way. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I thanks for the call very much, Pete. I always enjoy this very question, because I think there is a bit of a false choice being put forward for Democratic voters. And that is, we either have to vote for revolution, or you're a hypocrite, or you don't believe that this is the direction that we should be moving. What happens if the revolution doesn't materialize with a Bernie vote? I think that makes it nearly certain that if we're able to sustain the House, we lose the House in the 2022 midterm. So I think we have to be able to walk and chew gum as Democrats and say, listen, we might want the revolution, but if it doesn't happen, how are we going to prioritize the other issues that are really important to us to have a more just, fair, and equitable society, that really to have government work again for the middle class, which are values we all share, whether or not we're moderates or far-left liberals. What we're really disagreeing about is simply how fast we make those changes. Stick with me. Tom from LA. I'll come to you next after this short break. You are listening to Maggie Dawn, sitting in for the Devil's Advocates Radio on Wisconsin's Political Talk. Join the discussion at 844-967-2789. Back with more in a moment, folks.
If you missed something on the Devil's Advocates, don't worry. After you get over your shame, you can check out domandcroot.com. Podcasts and interviews updated daily.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Talk it out, man.
This is Ben Wickler, chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. On April 7th, Wisconsinites face a choice, and I'm not talking about the one in the presidential primary. It's the vote on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And here's something you need to know. Judge Jill Karofsky, running for justice, has been endorsed by Wisconsin teachers. She's up against Dan Kelly, who is appointed by Walker, endorsed by Trump, spoke at a Trump rally, and works to support Betsy DeVos in taking taxpayer money from Wisconsin public schools and handing that money to private schools. If you believe in public education in Wisconsin, it is crucial to vote for Judge Jill Karofsky for justice and against Dan Kelly, Donald Trump's pick, Betsy DeVos's pick, the wrong choice for Wisconsin Supreme Court. Most people do not know yet about this race, so it is time to spread the word. Post online, talk to friends and neighbors, Judge Jill Karofsky if you believe in public education in Wisconsin.
You are listening to WRRD Waukesha and W269DL Milwaukee, always streaming at talk1017fm.com.
In a union, there is strength. Wisconsin has had a long history with the organized labor movement in America, fighting for stronger wages, affordable health care, and retirement security, the values of the middle class. You can be part of that experience. Let Teamsters 200 be your partner. Your voice matters. Call Teamsters Local 200 at 414-771-6363 or visit us at www.teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook. Make a difference. Union Yes.
Whether you are remodeling your current space or constructing a new home, Habo Granite & Stone is here for all of your countertop needs. Habo Granite & Stone is family owned and offers a large selection of natural stone colors and all of the manufactured brands to complement every room in your home. From granite to marble and so much more, our local craftsmen work to customize the perfect countertops to suit your needs. Find us at HAYBO, HABOGranite.com.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and my family owns Madison Liquidators. Have you ever shopped for office furniture and been completely blown away by the prices? So have I. In Madison, your choices end up being big box stores with inexpensive pieces that fall apart when you look at them the wrong way, or high-end interior design quality furniture that costs as much as a car. That is why my family and I set out to start an office furniture store with a different philosophy and 3 main goals. Get our clients the quality office furniture they need at the prices they can afford, divert sound office furniture from the landfill, and develop relationships with small businesses within our community and help them grow. At Madison Liquidators, you will not be quoted our most expensive pieces up front and scaled back from there. We will work with you within your budget to allocate funds where it counts. We're interested in getting you the most bang for your buck every time. If you see something you like but it's outside your budget, let us know. We always have ideas to help make it work for you. Call me today and let's get started, or visit our website at madisonliquidators.com.
For 101.7 Milwaukee and 92.7 Madison, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers signed a new law yesterday regulating student isolation and restraints. Under the new law, schools would be required to tell parents and the public whenever they restrain or isolate students. The new law had bipartisan support and requires schools to quickly provide parents or guardians with a report on the incident and to annually report such events to the State Department of Public Instruction. In addition, the law requires new training in de-escalation for school staff who are charged with restraining students. Outside tonight, partly cloudy, lows around 30 degrees. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with highs in the low 40s. And for Thursday, partly sunny with highs in the upper 40s. You are tuned in to Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but they are kind of a big deal.
Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Maggie Dawn, typically doing Dawn of the Resistance, playing out Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 p.m. on this very station, 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison, Wisconsin's Political Talk Network. If you'd like to join the conversation this afternoon, you can do so. Call or text at 844-967-2789. Tom in L.A., what is up, my friend?
Hello, Maggie. First off, we the people are the government.
Let's hope so.
The question I would ask you is, because I think it's very important that you actually tell us who your bias is, of who it is that you would like to be a Democratic nominee, because everything goes through that filter to start off with. So from what you've been talking about, it sounds like you support Joe Biden.
You know, I have been... Like, I don't know if you were listening when, I forget what the guy's name from Charlottesville, Virginia was, that called in and said... Steve from Charlottesville, Virginia, said he's changed his mind a whole bunch of times. So have I, Tom. And I tend to be a more middle-of-the-road person because I work in government, and I tend to feel like, okay, I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to operationalize this, or how would we do this? How would we take this idea and put it into practice? So I just tend to be a practical person. But candidly, I think some of my job on the radio is to just help explore the ideas. So if I'm doing that in a way that sounds biased, I apologize. I do think sometimes the vast majority of people that do some of the hosting on air are very, very, very pro-Bernie. So I'm just trying to help explore some of those ideas. So I'm like a lawyer, Tom. I'm not answering your question.
Yeah, no. I got who your bias is, so that's okay. But I guess my point on it is that when you go down policy by policy, 80% of the American people agree with what Bernie's trying to do. And my biggest issue that I have with anything in politics is money in politics.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how it is that Joe Biden can get 60 billionaires to be supporting his campaign and not being owned by them versus being owned really and truly by we the people.
Yeah.
I
couldn't agree. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Tom. And you'll hear me do this. Like, oftentimes I'll say things and people, well, that doesn't match up with a centrist candidate. And I'll say, yeah, because some of my beliefs are more left and some are more center and center left. I think that one of the worst things that has ever happened to American democracy is the decision citizens united. Corporations are not people. People are people. The idea that money is somehow speech is false and wrong. I think that there are a lot of very straightforward reforms that would help reform this democracy and help give it back to the people. And that means that it shouldn't be the case that billionaires and special interests can buy elections. I love that about Bernie. I love that his financial support is coming from small dollar donations.
Right, and my next point would be, because of course I've donated to him, and I've also walked door to door for him, and I've done the things that I've done. And I think that Barack Obama honestly was a disappointment because I walked door to door for him for a month in Nevada, and definitely did not get any direction when he came into office. I think we need to start with a Medicare for all, and then if we get public option, we get public option. But if you're starting with public option, you're going to get Obamacare. You're going to get worse because the Democrats, what they keep on doing by this practicality move that they seem to do and get along mood of what they do, what ends up happening is programs that FDR, that LBJ actually put into our we the people government have been chipped away little by little because we keep on making deals with the Republicans.
Yeah, and I agree with.
And then when someone,
I agree with you 100% on that.
Republican,
Yep.
If someone says to a Republican, "Oh, we need to raise taxes a little bit," it's like, "Oh no, non-starter. That's a non-starter." So why the hell can't we, as Democrats and progressives, say, "Oh nope, sorry, that's a non-starter"?
Yeah, I am with
this
you.
Is where we're starting.
Yeah, I am totally with you on this, Tom. And so I think you and I end up disagreeing perhaps a little bit about the how we're doing it, but not about what the problem is. And I truly believe, and it's interesting, I've got a guy that just joined me in the booth to help me get through the next hour and a half that'll talk more about this, who's running for Congress here in Wisconsin. But one of the things that I cannot stand is I think that Democrats begin their argument already on the back of their heels and leaning back. They've already ceded too much ground. And I would introduce you to this concept, what I'm going to call the radical and uncompromising moderate. And yes, does that sound a little bit like an oxymoron? It sure does. But there means that for me, as someone who tends to be more practical and moderate, that there are certain things I will not trade away. And I will not start negotiating or compromising with Republicans from a position of weakness, that there have to be some immutable goals and values for us as Democrats, whether we're very far left progressives or more towards the center, that we simply say this is where we are going to get. And we are not going to cede, and we're not going to cede ground on these kinds of values, or we're going to draw basically some bright lines. And I think Democrats strategically have been horrible at this for the last 20 years. So I wholeheartedly embrace your criticism. And I think that we centrists and moderates can do better. And I think we as a party overall have to do better. We have to start returning results to the middle class.
I just think that the moderate position is basically when you go down position by position, do you believe that all people should have health care in this country? 80% of the people are saying yes. Do you believe that there should be college-free tuition? So instead of our taxpayer dollars that we spend to our government, to the establishment, they take that money and they don't give any of it back to us, we the people, They take it and they give it to Northrop Grumman. They take it and they give it to the big defense contractors.
And
Well, I'm
listen,
kind of sick of the fact that they keep on giving it to the donors instead of giving it to we the people.
yeah, and
So
listen,
for me-
in general, Tom, I agree with you, but I think we need to be careful that simply because someone's a moderate Democrat does not believe that I, for example, am supportive of the military-industrial complex. I do not support the huge amounts, the trillions of dollars in our budgets every year that go to support that. I also believe that we need to have a strong defense, but I think we spend inefficiently and ineffectively on that point. I'm sorry, you wanted to sort of round up your point, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I basically want to say that, you know what we ought to do is we should all come together, and the first thing we should be doing is getting all lobbyists, all money, everything out of politics.
100%.
I know that that's a big lift. I know it's a big lift, but then you would actually have it where the power would remain back with the people. So when you have people in Wisconsin that are out there marching and going to their congressperson's door, it actually means something because of the fact that all they care about is getting their money for their next election. And Joe Biden is that person as well. Joe Biden hasn't picked up his butt and been running all around the country, hasn't worked for any of this that he's doing right now, and Bernie Sanders sure has. Bernie Sanders has been out there hustling, doing everything he can. A heart attack can't even stop that guy. I mean, it's like he's going to every one of these rallies. Joe Biden, I haven't seen him at any rallies except for the one last night where he was coordinated, or it was his coronation. Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that I think that really and truly this is a point in our history where this is a very, very big decision right now to make in terms of which way we go. And I think that Bernie Sanders is our next FDR instead of being a Bill Clinton and going middle of the road and going neoliberal. And
well, I don't. To be very clear, I have not been a big supporter of many of the Clinton era policies, which I think can be fairly termed Republican policies. A lot of the deregulation that you saw really helped lay the groundwork for the economic crisis in 2008. Thank you so much for the call, Tom. Just a couple of points that I wanted to briefly make. I believe as a value here in the United States, all Americans should have health care. I believe health care is a human right. I don't know how we expect to educate our children or have public servants that can work in an efficient way if we don't have health care. I do not believe that free college is a top tier one priority. Particularly, I do not believe that free college for all. Why should taxpayer dollars go to pay the tuition of an incredibly rich person's child? I don't get that. But I think we need to start moving the needle and analyzing that college has become, in many ways, shapes, and forms, simply the province of the very well-to-do. And when we rob all people, regardless of merit, of equal access to advanced education, it results in a completely imbalanced and unequal society that helps perpetuate these generational wealth gaps. So there's a lot in there. I do want to bring my co-host for the last half of this afternoon into the mix. I've got Tom Paulsowitz, candidate for the 5th District of Congress, which was a red district here in Wisconsin, mostly west of 124th Street, running for Jim Sensenbrenner's seat that will vacate. And who's that guy you're running against there, Paul? Tom Paul?
I'd
Paulsowitz?
rather not mention his name, thank you.
The other guy, right?
Yeah.
So Tom Paulsowitz and I have known each other now for 2+ years, probably.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. And I thought it was important on this Super Tuesday to ask Tom to come in and share the mics with me this afternoon because there's so much that's going on here.
Yes.
And I'm curious to hear what your take is.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to a few things that Tom was talking about because I think those are really important issues to understand. I think the thing that people forget is that both Clinton and Obama came into office having the House and the Senate under Democratic control, right? And the problem is both of them came in to clean up a recession. And Obama's recession they had to clean up was pretty close to a depression, and they had to pull basically the rabbit out of the hat in order to make sure that the financial markets didn't seize up and millions of jobs were lost. Millions of jobs were still lost, but it could have been much worse. So when you think about what could actually happen when you have all three things aligned, there's a lot more that you can do. I love what Bernie's talking about. The ability to get it done as quickly as he's saying is just unrealistic. We are not going to have universal health care in 100 days or whatever he's promising. Because I would agree with you, Maggie, the difference between a moderate Dem and I would say a progressive Dem is not that far apart. We agree on where we're going. We agree on what the issues are. I think it's the speed of being able to get there. And Tom, I definitely agree with you about money in politics. It has to be removed. But I will tell you that there are a lot more politicians who would prefer to not have it removed than the rest of us who would have it removed.
Yeah, and that's serious problems. The other thing I wanted to echo that Tom pointed out is the creation of the middle class and the greatest wealth expansion for the middle class happened under FDR and LBJ. I mean, these were, and Eisenhower.
Actually, Truman and Eisenhower.
Yeah, Truman. It was this huge infrastructural spending. You know, and Trump,
when Republicans were interested in investing in our country.
Right. And not sending a lot of dollars into the military-industrial complex, which is almost like
well. And remember, though, that our military budget is the largest jobs program in the world.
In the
right?
world,
not all the money flows to the shareholders. A lot of it flows to jobs, and they're well-paying jobs. And any disruption is going to it's going to take some time to do.
And what's the second largest segment of the U.S.? 22% of the U.S. economy is
healthcare.
Healthcare. So listen. Totally redoing all of our healthcare economics is not going to happen in 100 days.
By the way, less than 10% in the UK.
Wow. So much to talk about, so little time. We're going to be rolling into the last segment of this hour in just a couple with Jeannie from Middleton and Chris from Sauk City. Stay with us. This is Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a load of money. So thank you.
Hi, this is Mark Nice, a retiree of Teamsters Local 200, and I want to remind you that your vote matters. The 40-hour work week, overtime pay, and benefits all started with your vote. Your vote matters. Right now, there's legislation sitting in the Senate to save our pensions, and it will not pass unless we elect people who will pass it. Your vote matters. This is how we defeated one of the most anti-labor governors in America. Stay informed, vote locally, vote in every election. Your vote matters.
Gingras, Thompson, and Wachs, the attorneys with more power, more fight, and the most heart, are here to serve you, Milwaukee. From personal injury to civil rights cases, we are determined to combat dishonesty and injustice. And our team brings the fight with integrity, passion, and dedication that never quits. Together, we right the wrong, and we are ready for battle. There are law firms, and then there is Gingras, Thompson, and Wachs. Find us online at gtwlawyers.com.
Oh yeah, what you say? You say Nasala Kombucha. It'll put some glide in your stride and some pep in your step. Nasala Kombucha. Yeah.
Nasala Kombucha makes your body happy.
Nasala Kombucha. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and nasala.com.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on Talk 1017 FM. Weekdays, you can hear the Santita Jackson Show from 6 to 8 a.m. Next, it's the Earl Ingram Show from 8 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Matt Flynn Direct. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. At 6, it's Busted Pencils, Brandy Grayson, and Maggie Dawn. And at 7, it's Democracy Now! Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at talk1017fm.com.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Maggie Dawn of Dawn of the Resistance, played out every Thursday and Friday live from 6 to 7 here on 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison. Again, that's live Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 p.m. You can call or text me when I've got my show going on, or while I'm filling in with for the Devils with Tom Paulsowitz at 844-967-2789. We're arguing all the sticky wickets today, apparently, on this superest of Tuesdays.
Yes.
One of the interesting things, and Tom wanted to talk about free tuition, that I wanted to point out is basically to date, the primaries have been not important. I don't mean to say like unimportant, but not super important. Basically, we've got Bernie and Biden an effective delegate tie. The reason Super Tuesday is so super is because 1,300 some delegates get doled out today. You only need 1,900 to secure a nomination. So this can really change the landscape. It'll be fascinating to see how today pans out. But Tom, you had a few thoughts that you wanted to share on the free tuition.
Yeah, tuition. I mean, a couple things. One is we've all agreed that we're going to collectively fund children from a public education standpoint through 12th grade. And then suddenly that stops, even though we live in a world now where education becomes a higher priority. And the other part is when I went to school back in the 80s, when I went to college in the 80s, state and federal funding was close to 70% of the cost. Now it's below 30% of the cost. And all we've done is pass that cost along to people, one, who mostly can't afford it, so they've been taking out student loans. And me as an ex-banker know that if you're a bank, you love student loans because they're guaranteed and Congress sets the rate, and Congress never sets the rate low. They always set it high. So it's a guaranteed rate of return. So you're going to take all the student loans you can get. So if somebody comes to you and says, I need a degree in
underwater basket weaving.
Yes. All right, great. We'll pay for you 4 years for Harvard. You'll rack up a couple $100,000 in debt. We have no idea how you're going to pay that back, but
the Fed guarantees
we'll be here to collect it, and you're going to be paying pretty much till you die. And that's what we've locked a lot of people into. Student loan debt, I have to agree with Bernie on this one. Student loan debt is now a financial crisis in America because there's $1.7 trillion of debt out there, and we've got so many people who are delaying buying their first homes, buying cars, having children. It's having an immediate impact on the growth rate of our economy.
And just so that people, one of the reasons that the coronavirus has had this huge economic effect in the immediate term is because as soon as consumer spending starts to contract, that's cars, that's homes, that's when do you have children, all that kind of, it's restauranting, it's traveling, all that stuff. You will see economic contraction.
Yeah, and we've never been in an environment like this where the economy supposedly is doing well, yet more and more people are living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And the people who are going to hit hardest by this virus, if it does spread and we have a situation where we have to start shutting things down, are the people living paycheck to paycheck.
And without health care.
Without health care, right.
Here we go again. Well, thanks again, Tom Paulsowitz, congressional candidate in the 5th District of Wisconsin, for being here with me. I have to joke because Tom from LA spells his name T-O-H-O-M. I have a very good friend, a T-O-H-M, Paul. You are Tom Paulsowitz. So
combination of the two. I do not throw the H in there.
Struggle through.
That was a decision I made when I was 7, but I'm living with it now.
Somehow
I do want to, because I forgot this last time, I do want to do a quick plug for the campaign. Please. So our website is tomforwi.com, TOMFORWI.com. So go check us out. We are running in the 5th Congressional District, which is basically everywhere between Milwaukee and Madison. And it is a rapidly changing district. There are loud and proud Democrats. Most people don't know that Washoe County has the 3rd most number of Democrats in the state of any county. And it is going to be a battleground in this country come November, because what's going to happen is most likely Pennsylvania and Michigan are going to go back into the blue column, and it's coming down to Wisconsin, and it's coming down to the 5th Congressional District. And it's our job to make sure we flip enough votes to make sure there's a Democrat in the White House.
Jeannie from Middleton, welcome to the Devil's Advocates. What do you have for us?
Hi, Maggie. I was going to say I've tried to calm down in the few minutes while you were talking with this Tom, but I want to ditto everything that Tom from LA said, because I agree with him wholeheartedly, is that we need to stop saying, oh, Bernie's not going to do this, or oh, Bernie's not going to do that. We need to set aside a particular person and say, what is it that we in the U.S. need today to provide for the needs of our people? And right now, it concerns me a big time today that the Democratic Party, and I'm talking about the National Democratic Party, is playing the Jackson play. And so they're trying to undermine an individual that is creating a movement to try to bring back a middle-class scenario versus what we have now is, I called yesterday about talking about class struggle. And typically, when it kind of oscillates between two groups, you usually think of the idea of when it's a few, you think in the corporations we call it fascism. And when it's the majority, and we generally speaking associate that with the people or the masses, we call that more something related to socialism. And so people need to understand that it's always going back and forth between these groups, depending upon who has the more power play. And right now, the corporations have had it since the 1980s. It's been increasing. Now we need to get it back to being more in line with, you were talking earlier about what Truman and Eisenhower did with some wonderful things. But of course, the person that set the momentum into play was the FDR. Mm-hmm. He was the one that did the heavy lifting. And so that you got back to addressing the needs of the majority and preparing for the future. And right now, I don't see that the Democratic Party is that concerned about the people. They're representing activities that maintain the status quo, meaning they're in office and they've got a nice situation. The other thing I wanted to say is the idea, I know people have a tendency to jump on some little slogan and not go for the nuance. And I've heard so many times this concept of free tuition, that Bernie keeps referring to. But what they forget to mention the idea that there's something else that goes along with that free tuition. It's called merit-based education. Because right now we have too many situations where people are paying thousands of dollars for a piece of paper. And so that, the parents and the kids will complain, hey, teacher, you have to give me credit for this and credit for that. And
sorry to cut you off there, Jeannie. We got to go to break here. I call it the old participation award. Not all degrees are created equal, and not all applicants are created equal either. The old myth of meritocracy here in the good old United States. Stick with me. We will be back for more. If you're holding on the phones, we'll get to you next. It's Maggie and Tom Paulsowitz here on Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
Do you want to be a winner? All the winners I know like the Devil's Advocates Facebook page.
I always hear about the elite. The elite, they're elite. I went to better schools than they did. I was a better student than they were. I live in a bigger, more beautiful apartment, and I live in the White House, too, which is really great.
You're wrong. Dom, the Devil's Advocates are going on an adventure.
Join Crute and I for our inaugural 420-2020 celebration from our friends at Expedia Cruise Ship Centers of Madison. Our political party runs for 7 nights over the 420 holiday in sunny and cannabis-legal California. The Hilton La Jolla Torrey Pines is near the beach, boasting a world-class golf course, and is just a few minutes drive from downtown San Diego.
Expedia prices, local service. Visit them on Madison's west side off Mineral Point Road or Google Expedia Cruise Ship Centers Madison.
Elections create conversations. Taking the conversation to the ballot box is how we create a stronger future. Hi, I'm Demetri McClain, a member of Teamsters Local 200, and Milwaukee is my hometown. And just like Waukesha, Oconomowoc, Madison, the middle class is the backbone of my hometown. The conversation to restore and strengthen it begins with us. Your vote matters. To register and find out what's on your ballot, go to myvote.wi.gov.
You are listening to WRRD Waukesha and W269DL Milwaukee, always streaming at talk1017fm.com.
Coronavirus deaths, Nashville destruction. I'm Ann Cates. The death toll from the coronavirus has climbed to 9 in the Seattle area as Congress works on a spending measure to fight the outbreak.
I'm very optimistic we're going to come together on a bicameral, bipartisan basis
with a package.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell referring to a funding package working its way through Congress.
But I think we're on the way to getting that through the House this week, and with cooperation, could get it through the Senate as well.
Democratic Senator Patrick Leahy says one of the sticking points right now is how much it will cost the public to get a coronavirus test kit or vaccine, especially after taxpayer money funds the development of those products. Linda Kenyon, Washington.
At least 25 people have died after tornadoes tore through the Nashville area and surrounding counties. Correspondent Daryl Forges is there.
Thousands are without power all throughout the state. Now, many here are still trying to already pick the pieces back up, and as of right now, businesses are helping those in need by giving away free coffee, free food, just to help those. And also, the Bridgestone Arena will be opening their doors to help those who have been displaced.
Super Tuesday primaries are being held in 14 states today, from Maine to California. Correspondent Arlette Saenz reports the Joe Biden campaign is getting a big financial infusion since his South Carolina win.
Their long-term strategy of using South Carolina as a springboard for the nomination is playing out in real time right now, with that wave of endorsements across the country and also an influx of cash. Now, the Biden campaign is hoping to do well in southern states with large African American populations like Alabama. They're also seeing some signs of hope in Virginia, as after a few endorsements from that state had poured in.
Despite an emergency rate cut by the Federal Reserve, Wall Street tanked today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 786 points, the S&P 500 down 87, the Nasdaq off 268. I'm Ann Cates.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on Talk 101.7 FM. Weekdays, you can hear the Santita Jackson Show from 6 to 8 a.m. Next, it's the Earl Ingram Show from 8 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Matt Flynn Direct. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. At 6, it's Busted Pencils, Brandy Grayson, and Maggie Dawn. And at 7, it's Democracy Now! Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at talk1017fm.com. Thanks to you, our listeners, Wisconsin's Political Talk Network continues to grow. Now, radio listeners in the Milwaukee area can hear WRRD on the FM dial at 101.7 FM 24 hours a day. Tune in when you're in the car, at home, or at work, because politics matters at Talk 101.7 FM.
For the second straight week, politics dominated primetime television.
CBS News' coverage of the Democratic presidential debate from South Carolina last week was easily the most watched event on television, with over 15 million viewers. A week after the debate in Nevada dominated ratings. The Nielsen Company also says the news magazine 60 Minutes, which featured Scott Pelley's interview with Democrat Mike Bloomberg, came in second last week. Meanwhile, the three news networks, Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN, were the most popular networks on cable television, and ABC's World News Tonight won the evening news race. Outside of politics, millions watched The Voice, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, Chicago PD, Survivor, American Idol, and This Is Us. I'm Joe Ramsey.
The publisher John Bolton's highly anticipated memoir has pushed back the release date from March 17th to mid-May. Simon & Schuster cited the ongoing government security review of the former National Security Advisor's book, The Room Where It Happened. I'm Ann Cates.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and my family owns Madison Liquidators. Have you ever shopped for office furniture and been completely blown away by the prices? So have I. In Madison, your choices end up being big box stores with inexpensive pieces that fall apart when you look at them the wrong way, or high-end interior design quality furniture that costs as much as a car. That is why my family and I set out to start an office furniture store with a different philosophy and three main goals. Get our clients the quality office furniture they need at the prices they can afford, divert sound office furniture from the landfill, and develop relationships with small businesses within our community and help them grow. At Madison Liquidators, you will not be quoted our most expensive pieces up front and scaled back from there. We will work with you within your budget to allocate funds where it counts. We're interested in getting you the most bang for your buck every time. If you see something you like but it's outside your budget, let us know. We always have ideas to help make it work for you. Call me today and let's get started, or visit our website at madisonliquidators.com.
For 101.7 Milwaukee and 92.7 Madison, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers is calling for a meeting tomorrow to prepare the state for the possibility of an outbreak of the coronavirus. The meeting will bring state lawmakers and health officials together for a briefing on the state's plan to identify and prepare for more cases of the virus. The governor asked the Department of Health Services to provide the briefing for legislative leaders, lawmakers on health committees, and constitutional offices, according to the Journal-Sentinel. So far, Wisconsin has had only one case of coronavirus, and that person has now been cleared after testing negative 2 times after a month in isolation. Outside tonight, partly cloudy, lows around 30 degrees. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with highs in the low 40s. You are tuned in to Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Maggie Dawn in the studio with Tom Paulsowitz, candidate for the 5th Congressional District on Wisconsin's Political Talk Network. You can, of course, hear my show, Dawn of the Resistance, playing out live Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 on this very station, 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison. You can join our conversation this afternoon, 844-967-2789. A bit of a change of pace. Not only is there a woman in the booth during the Devil's Advocates, but a candidate in the booth during Devil's Advocates, and 2, moderate pragmatist Dems in the booth during Devil's Advocates.
I would say yes. Yeah. So completely different show.
Yeah, so if you want to come in and take us to task, please do so. All opinions are welcome. The one thing I just want to remind everybody of is most of the time what we are debating amongst Bernie and Biden supporters or the more further left progressives and centrist Dems is not the why and the values. We generally agree on the values, not just a little bit, like completely agree on the values. What we're arguing about is the how and the how fast. And the one thing, and for folks who've heard my show before, that I really get activated about is when politicians stop talking about the how. Because good policymaking isn't just about values. It's about values and how am I going to do this? How am I going to pay for this? And telling people what expectations can and should be. That doesn't mean that we don't aim for the stars and say, here's where our values should take us. But when you promise people the world and then you fail to deliver, it further undermines public trust in government and public trust in elected officials. As someone who works in government, and I don't mean to speak for Tom, but for someone attempting to work in government, the one thing I always strive to do is be very honest and truthful about the hows and the timeline and what people can expect from me. These aren't the easiest of questions, and reasonable people are going to disagree.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to talk about timeline. I just read a blurb, I think it was earlier today, about a Bernie supporter, and he was all in on Bernie because Bernie was going to get rid of his student loans. And to me, that's a little bit of a tenuous situation to be able to say that if I elect this president, they're going to wipe out my debt. Because it's probably not going to happen on the time frame this gentleman thinks it's going to happen. Because there's a whole bunch of things that need to happen to make that happen. And I think that's the thing we're talking about. I like the way you were describing it. I like to think about it as speed of change. In this country, we talk a lot about change, how we like change, but we don't. We do not like to change things quickly. And because it makes us very uncomfortable and very nervous. And what we need to do is figure out, all right, like you were saying, why do we need to change it? What's the goal that we want to get to? And what's a reasonable timeline to do it? Universal health care. I think most people agree that we need to move to a universal health care plan. There's 3.5 million jobs in the health insurance industry. I mean, we're just throwing them out day one and saying, go find another job. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So there has to be a phased-in approach to what we're doing. And I love also one more thing on this, because I think it's really important. And as a candidate, I know this. As soon as you lay out a plan, people will be either picking apart the plan or coming up with their own plan. And it's not about the plan. Nothing goes the way you think it's going to go. I think it was Eisenhower that said it best, is planning is essential, plans are worthless. And it's really important to understand that it is the art of planning. It's the art of being able to craft things with everybody in the room who has a say in it eventually when you're elected. Coming up with a plan and saying this is how I'm going to do it before I'm elected is one thing is certain. That's not how it's going to go.
Well, I think Barack Obama's first 2 years as president proves that out in spades. And I just, again, I always get very nervous when fellow Democrats litmus test one another. You know, I share the same values that nearly all of my progressive friends do. I've had the burden and the blessing of working on Wall Street and in government for the last, decade plus of my career. And sometimes even the most simple policy changes are incredibly difficult to implement when we start to talk about things that are as fundamentally shifting, and they should be shifting in the way to the fact that everyone has a right to health care. That takes execution and planning so that bad things don't happen. And some bad things are always going to happen because you're fundamentally changing the rules of the road. Thanks so much for our lovely callers that have hung on the line with us. We are going to go to Scott in Charlottesville, Virginia. Thank you so much for joining us from one of our primary states.
Hi, I'm glad that you took my call. Thanks. I really wanted to speak to you about what you're saying about the Bernie Sanders campaign. And I'd like to remind you that I'm speaking from Charlottesville, where we went through one of the most terrible and widely publicized assaults by white nationalists and Nazis just 2 years ago. I really think that the moderate Democrats are not perceiving our political situation clearly. The Republicans have demonstrated for decades that they are not interested in negotiating on any social policies, and that they are operating on strategies that go behind the scenes to fund their projects, like the way that President Trump recently just moved $4 billion from the Department of Defense into building the wall. They are making their dreams come true because they're simply doing it. And I think that the Democrats need to start embracing the idea that if we have values and political beliefs that we stand behind, that we are going to make those things happen. And I really resent, actually, moderate Democrats that pay lip service to all the values of the progressive movement, but then cut down its candidates, discredit its possibilities for implementing the kind of reform that this country needs desperately. And I also would like to say this is a situation I think that we can compare to climate change, because the urgency with which we need to make political change in this country is as critical as the changes that we need to make to save our planet. And I'd like to hear your response to that.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Scott. You raised a whole gamut of really important issues. The thing I always want to cautious against and beg for some unity on these issues is to presume that when someone talks about how we're pragmatically going to get policies accomplished, that doesn't mean that, and I'll speak only out of my own voice on this, it doesn't mean that I'm not fully embracing the values that we're speaking about, because eventually you have to take it from the poetry of campaigning into the prose of governance. You have to operationalize it. And when we're talking about legislative change, the pragmatics are that we have to get it through both houses of Congress some way, somehow. Now, it's interesting because I think you raised a few things that we have been thinking and trying to digest and be constructive about during this last couple of hours on here. Part of what I hear in your voice is pain and frustration at what has gone on. As a lawyer and as an economist and as someone who deeply cares about communities that extend well beyond my own, I share that concern. I feel as if we're in dark days, and not irretrievably dark days. And I also want to be clear that whomever the Democratic nominee is, they will be getting my full-throated support. But again, trying to probe and think through, how are we going to accomplish this? And if we can't accomplish it, or it takes longer than maybe people expect, what does that mean politically? I just think that that's good political strategy. The second point I'd like to make is I too believe that moderate Democrats, and I think the Clintons are a good example of this, ceded ground that should never be ceded by Democrats. Now, what does that mean, and how do we move forward from that? And what are the values that we should find and make sure are immutable in our party are good questions to have. Here are some of the values that I think are immutable, that race should be a part of every political discussion, and that we need to be radically honest with one another about the racist history of this country and the continued institutionalized discrimination and bad effects of that racism that have never been truly talked about nor addressed with any level of candidness by white politicians in this country. That's a value. I have a value that says every person has a right to health care. Every child has a right to a safe home, a safe and stable home. And how do we do that? That we should be doing more for people that struggle with mental health instead of locking them up in our criminal justice system. I have a value that says that we should be decriminalizing nonviolent marijuana offenses. When we come back from break, I'm going to let Tom talk about his values. I don't think we're that far apart. And I think having a reasoned discussion about how we start implementing those values into policy doesn't mean I'm not on board. And I think we as Democrats, and some of us that are moderates, can take a very different approach, which isn't, gee whiz, let's start from a position of negotiating weakness and then proceed to give away the farm to conservatives. We need to get brass-knuckled. And we need to stop bringing knives to gunfights. So I'm with you on that, Scott. I hope you understand the nuance that I'm trying to build here. And this is the important discussion that we as Democrats and folks that share these values need to continue to have. Know that I will be with whomever the candidate is after the nomination, because what's happening in our government is absolutely abhorrent. Stick with us. Linda in Madison, Philip in Waukesha, Dick in Madison. I will take each of you when we come back from break. I'm in the booth with Tom Paulswitz, Congressional 5th District candidate. He'll give us his 2 cents when we come back. You are listening to Maggie Dawn on Wisconsin's Political Talk Network, 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison.
It's called the American Dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
The American dream is dead.
Hi, this is Mark Nice, a retiree of Teamsters Local 200, and I want to remind you that your vote matters. The 40-hour work week, overtime pay, and benefits all started with your vote. Your vote matters. Right now, there's legislation sitting in the Senate to save our pensions, and it will not pass unless we elect people who will pass it. Your vote matters. This is how we defeated one of the most anti-labor governors in America. Stay informed, vote locally, vote in every election. Your vote matters.
Sell your Madison area home for top dollar with ease. Hi, I'm Amy Hopfinger with Homestead Realty, and I have a program that saves you time and money. Sell your home without the hassle. No signs, no open houses, no keeping your home showing ready, no leaving for showings. Quick, easy, convenient. Visit me at buyerformyhouse.com. That's buyerformyhouse.com.
Milwaukee is a great city with a great history and great architecture. You can take in Milwaukee's history and architecture while you partake in the delicious Wisconsin craft beer at Regano's Roman Coin. The Roman Coin features weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, pinball, a pool table, a jukebox, and a great selection of craft beers. The Roman Coin is also pet-friendly to appeal to the canine crowd, and you can order it from several nearby restaurants. Regano's Roman Coin, 1004 East Brady Street on Milwaukee's East Side.
Tune in to Matt Flynn Direct, weekdays 2 to 3.
I happen to believe it or not, and I regret it, I voted for President Trump, and I regret it after I heard that testimony from that lady, what was her name?
Marie Yovanovitch.
Look, this president, he did threaten to hold up front if Ukraine didn't dig up some kind of dirt on Joe Biden and his son. It's like extortion. He should be pissed off at Trump.
That's Matt Flynn Direct, weekdays 2 to 3.
60% of the time, they're right every time. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
But not today. Today you're stuck with me, Maggie Dawn. My show plays out live Thursdays to Fridays, 6 to 7 on this 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison. I always love people telling me that they think I'm all wet and trying to sort through some of these thorny issues. Today I have in the booth with me Tom Paulsowitz, congressional candidate for the 5th District. Tom, you wanted to address a little bit of what we were talking about last
just
segment.
a couple of things that Scott had mentioned. I think it's important, at least the way I think about it, to understand is that just because people might disagree about how to get somewhere doesn't mean people disagree with why you're trying to get there. One of the things that Scott said that really struck me is the moderates are paying lip service to the progressive movement, and that to me is fundamentally untrue. I think we all see a need to get to where we need to go. I'm running a campaign in I would say a fairly red district that's based on climate change, it's based on universal health care, and it's based on gun violence prevention, because we think those are the issues that suburban moms and I would say moderate Republicans really care about. If there is a Republican Party left, we were talking a little bit about that before. But the bottom line is we need to end corruption in government. Because a lot of the issues that we have right now, there's not a big divide when it comes to policy or politics. Most people agree in universal background checks. Most people believe that everybody should have access to affordable and safe health care. Everybody agrees we should be doing something about the climate. We have people in positions of power that are there because of money and they're there because of structure that are almost immovable at this point. And I will tell you one thing, we'll have the House as Democrats. There's a good chance we'll take back the White House, but if we don't take back the Senate, guaranteed there's not much of a change over the next 2 years.
And that sends a deep chill down my spine when we start thinking about these judicial appointees. I mean, Trump has packed the courts. In any case, Dick, my main man from Madison, thank you so much for hanging on the line. I really appreciate you. What do you have to share this afternoon?
Well, can we all get on board and remember this? All of this started on January, in my mind anyway, January 20th, 1981. This chipping away at what was a good thing. And I know I don't have to tell you where I'm going, but Brian brought up something on Matt's show that I heard earlier before I went back to work, and I never forgot it, about the real hardcore Bernie people, and I'm not trying to get on anybody, but when he was talking to some of them that said that, you know, they won't vote for anybody else but Bernie, they'll just not vote. I implore you, as those people, if you're listening, did you like this 3-year bad movie we've just seen? Whoever it is, we have to get behind in a huge way. And we have to win by big margins, because all of these states that are messing with voter suppression, you're down a litany of things they're gonna pull, and you know they are. It's scary to me that once we get a nominee, whoever it is, I know it sounds hokey, this vote blue no matter who, but not to me, because I'm 64 years old, and I do not want to close out seeing this S show.
Yeah, I hear you, Dick. Thank you so much for sharing with us this afternoon. I think that's where a lot of people are. And, you know, I always feel challenged as someone who's pragmatic, who's worked in government, who struggles with how to bring, you know, these policies into fruition, how to do this well at Milwaukee County. Listen, if we can't engage in that dialogue amongst ourselves, how can we push back? If the line to me as someone who's moderate is either you have to agree with me, a progressive Bernie supporter, on absolutely every single line item, or you're a traitor to the cause and I'm not showing up to vote and who cares what happens. Wow, doesn't that play into the hands of Donald Trump and the Russians? Aren't we dividing ourselves?
Yes, and the Russians would like nothing better than to see us continue to do this. And I think, because I would agree with you on a bunch of different levels, but I think the biggest thing is you know, going back to 1981, so it's taken us how many years to get into the position we're in today? That is 40 years of policies and chipping away at the middle class. We're not going to solve this in 100 days. We're not going to solve this in 6 months. It's going to take a long time to move this whole thing back to where we need it to go. But there are certain things we can start doing. But once again, it really is going to be, can we rally around a candidate, regardless of who that candidate is? And then once we have that candidate, are we going to fight hard to make sure we also take the Senate? Because if we don't take the Senate or make it a lot closer, this is all going to be for naught. Because Mitch McConnell will continue to operate the way he's been operating and basically bottle everything up. If you think what he did during the Obama administration was terrible, watch what he'll do next.
Yeah, here we go. Everybody on the horn, we are going to get to you. I have you in order. Philip from Waukesha, Linda from Madison, and Brock we've got on the line. How much time we got left, B-Rye? 1 minuto. I don't want to have anybody have to...
Can I clarify the point that I was trying to make with Dick? Dick talked about the result of it. But the point I was trying to make was that I think a lot of the people that say I'm not going to vote for anybody else but Bernie, for me... most of Bernie supporters will vote blue no matter who. The people that say they're not going to vote for anyone but Bernie, I believe, are the same type of people who were not engaged in politics until Bernie. And I think a lot of those folks are the ones who are the differentiation between I'm not going to vote for somebody else. And so my point is that I think they're going to, and most of the people who have been engaged before will vote for anyone as well, whereas someone who's new to politics because of Bernie will probably maybe not.
Yeah, and I can get that. It's that emotional sale, and the other candidates just don't do it for them. I'm Maggie Dawn. You are also listening to Tom Paulsowitz here on Devil's Advocates Radio. We're filling in because the Devils are in Minneapolis to bring you live post Super Tuesday returns. So stick with us. We'll be back with more in a moment, and we're going to go right to the callers after the break. Thanks, folks.
Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
Congresswoman Gwen Moore.
You know, I thought it was really important to share with people my diagnosis of cancer. The Affordable Care Act is the kind of thing that's going to keep me alive for a long, long time. Why? Because they can't throw me off of my health insurance simply because I have cancer. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare provided for that. They can't raise my rates and my premiums so high beyond community rating and beyond age rating. Obamacare created that. They can't cap the amount of benefits that they are willing to give me over a lifetime. I have medicine that costs $18,000 a month. They can't force me to pay out-of-pocket costs beyond a certain point. All of that happened because of Obamacare. Thank you, Obama.
You can listen to the Devil's Advocates interviews at DomandCrute.com. Click on the podcast tab and select interviews. That's DomandCrute.com. You are listening to WRRD Waukesha and W269DL Milwaukee. Always streaming at Talk1017FM.com.
Dom, the Devil's Advocates are going on an adventure.
Join Crute and I for our inaugural 420 celebration from our friends at Expedia Cruise Ship Centers of Madison. Our political party runs for 7 nights over the 420 holiday in sunny and cannabis-legal California. The Hilton La Jolla Torrey Pines is near the beach, boasting a world-class golf course, and is just a few minutes drive from downtown San Diego.
Expedia prices, local service. Visit them on Madison's west side off Mineral Point Road or Google Expedia Cruise Ship Centers Madison. Beating Donald Trump is my life's mission. Winning Wisconsin is the key. We built a progressive Wisconsin talk radio network to do just that. Now I need your help. I need money to complete the mission. Beat Donald Trump. Support progressive radio. Give now at GoFundMe Resistance Radio Wisconsin, or find the Support the Station link on any of our websites. I can't do it alone. Thank you for your help.
Elections create conversations. Taking the conversation to the ballot box is how we create a stronger future. Hi, I'm Demetri McClain, a member of Teamsters Local 200, and Milwaukee is my hometown. And just like Waukesha, Oconomowoc, Madison, the middle class is the backbone of my hometown. The conversation to restore and strengthen it begins with us. Your vote matters. To register and find out what's on your ballot, go to myvote.wi.gov.
More power, more fight, the most heart. Gingras, Thompson & Walks is more than a law firm. We're family. We believe in doing our best to help people in need and right the wrong that's occurred. For more than 35 years, we've helped thousands of clients across the state of Wisconsin get the justice they deserve. Our proven track record of success isn't based solely on our knowledge of the judicial system. Rather, we make it our priority to get to know our clients and their cases so we can best represent them. Gingras, Thompson & Walks. Find us online at gtwlawyers.com.
For 101.7 Milwaukee and 92.7 Madison, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Republicans now say they will go to the Wisconsin Supreme Court in their effort to remove more than 200,000 voters from the state's voting rolls. That move comes after an appeals court on Friday struck down a judge's ruling to remove the voters because they may have moved. The appeals judges also unanimously overturned a finding that state election officials were in contempt of court for not taking the voters off the rolls. The Wisconsin Elections Commission originally notified the voters in October that they would be removed next year if they didn't respond, but a conservative group sued to have the voters removed immediately. Outside tonight, partly cloudy, lows around 30 degrees. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with highs in the low 40s. For Thursday, partly sunny with highs in the upper 40s. You're tuned in to Wisconsin's Political Talk Network.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Maggie Dawn of Dawn of the Resistance, which you can find on this very station Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7. Also a call-in show. And in the studio with me today is Congressional 5th District candidate Tom Paulzowitz. We are filling in for the Devils, who are in Minneapolis, to give you live post-Super Tuesday returns. Thanks for being with me, Tom.
Thanks for having me. We're having fun so far.
We are. Lots to dissect. Let's see here. We got Philip from Waukesha. I promised I'd go right to the phones after the break. Here you go, my friend. What do you have to share with us this afternoon?
Yeah, hi, guys. Just a couple things. I'm 65 years old, white male, and I'm a Bernie guy, but I will vote for anybody who's a Democrat that's running against the
outstanding
so-called president that we have. A couple other things, too, is there's a couple things that I wish the Democrats, in fact, I would like to see them have to take an oath whenever they get elected to public office that they can never use Ronald Reagan in any of their talks as being a nice guy. Or, well, Ronald Reagan did this. Ronald Reagan is the start of what we are in right now. We had good health care. We had affordable education. We had a middle class up until 1980 when he became president. He bashed the unions. So we got to stop using him to defend our beliefs, because this guy is the start of most of the problems we're having right now.
Did it work? Anyone know the effects? It did not work.
His trickle-down economics never worked. Anything that he ever did, the guy was a crook. He was a cheater. He worked with foreign powers against, Iran-Contra. The guy is dirty. The other thing is that as all Democrats, I'd like to see the Democrats get out of saying things like, when we need universal health care, we need to do this, we need to do that. We've got to stop saying, how are we going to pay for it? When Kennedy took over, he said in 10 years we're going to be on the moon. When Roosevelt, when we were bombed, within weeks we switched our economy from a peacetime economy to a wartime economy. We can do anything we want as long as we are for it and we support it. Universal health care. I know it's not going to happen in 10 days, but at least let's strive to that. And there's ways we can pay for that. Do we have to defend giving billions and billions of dollars to the military-industrial complex that we have? We always find money for that. We can find money for the environment, to save the environment, to universal health care. I've been paying for insurance for 45 years, and it's the poorest value of any product I ever bought. I pay $7,000. My company pays $3,000, and I can't afford to pay the deductibles.
Yeah,
I can't afford to go to health because we still have to pay for. I mean, that's pretty
incredible.
Darn good. Where you pay all this money in, and when you have a claim, they deny it. Yeah. I mean, let's work together. We've got the Roosevelt Bill of Rights, the second Bill of Rights. Those 10, I think there were 10 of them. Let's have that as our goals, and then let's work together to reach these goals instead of saying no all the time.
Well, we're 100% with you, Philip. I think that's right on point. I think I don't mean to speak for Tom, but certainly I fully agree with you. And the interesting about the question of how do we pay for it is, if you just look at what the cost of any of this is on top of where our current budgets are, it's not possible. But you make the right point. We make choices about values every budget season. Just a little interesting factoid. Donald Trump proposed in his budget, which he sent to Congress for 2021, a 15% cut to the CDC and a 12% cut to the Department of Health and Human Services. Yeah, so I don't know if his bona fides are really in order when it comes to fighting the coronavirus. Tom, what did you want to add to that? Thanks, Philip.
Philip, you're preaching to the choir here. Thanks for the call, though. I do want to add, though, that I think it's important for us to realize that, like you said, Reagan started this thing moving in a direction that's unsustainable. And back to healthcare, we're paying $11,000 per person in this country for healthcare, which is about at least 40 to 50% higher than the next highest industrialized country on the planet.
For worse outcomes.
But the bottom line is, as a country, we're terrible at math. We don't understand the basics. But if you think about a family of four who's making a median wage of $52,000 to $56,000 a year, it's costing them $44,000 in healthcare. And that's on top of what they're bringing home, but they got to pay their own deductibles. They got to pay a whole bunch of things. Wages have been stagnant since the Reagan administration, and people are falling behind. This is the first time in our country where the next generation has a less than 50-50 chance of doing better than the last generation. And it's strictly because of the issues we're talking about. But once again, we were talking about this before. There is no other party right now. We have the Democrats and we have corruption, because the Republicans have decided that they are for smaller government at all costs.
Corruption, okay.
Because they want to privatize everything.
Yeah.
That is their goal. And right now we're in the middle of a manufactured financial crisis over the next 6 months, because we're going to go into a recession because of the virus. and there's going to be a manufactured financial crisis, and it's going to be a huge opportunity for the Republicans to say we need to privatize more health care. We need, VA health care. We need to privatize Social Security. We need to privatize all these other things.
I don't actually think we're going to see a recession. I think we're going to see a contraction. I think we're going to see some hand-wringing. If it gets bad, that's where the Republicans will go. That's not an if, that's a but when. So, economics is cyclical. Whenever the downturn or slowdown comes, Republicans will go, oh, well, that Medicare and Medicaid can't do that anymore. And Linda Madison, you've been a trooper. Thanks for hanging in there. What do you have for us this afternoon?
Well, thanks so much for letting me join in. I wanted to take another attempt at trying to explain what a caller a while back ago was trying to talk about the pragmatic black voter.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I think what's interesting is that almost overnight, the conversation now is down to Biden and Bernie, social mobility, healthcare is too much, education is too much. But I think what the caller was trying to say is that black voters really have to be very pragmatic, and just seeing how quickly the conversation and the debate tunneled down, and why it's not acceptable to have any other interests other than the ones that are people want to talk about. That's just not practical. I mean, not everybody lives there. Not everybody has to worry about their social mobility. They have to worry about other things.
Linda, are you a white lady or a other box checking?
Well, Earl thinks Stu and me are white, but we're not.
I hope Earl and Stu are listening. I think I get your point, Linda, but I'm not sure I totally agree. Here's the deal. When we do better as a country, as a culture, as a local government, a state government, a federal government, for black folks and brown folks, everybody else ends up doing better too. And that means that we need to be okay talking about race and talking about race and talking about race and continuing to talk about race, because your interests and the interests of black folks and brown folks aren't different interests. They're actually the same thing. But our unwillingness to directly confront and have difficult, painful, honest discussions about race handicaps our ability as a country to have these really challenging discussions about, well, how do we go about making this a more equitable society for people? And in order to have...
So wait. Let me just jump in here, because that is the go-to talking point. That's the go-to talking point. Let's talk about race. Let me tell you, the pragmatic black voter is happy to talk about race, but I need to talk about black incarceration. I need to talk about black children not graduating at a rate of 67%.
And why do you think black folks are over incarcerated and that black children are not enjoying the same educational success as their white peers?
Okay, and the pragmatic voter can't have that conversation with you anymore, because we tried that in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and so forth. We have to say, what can you do about incarceration? What can you do about education of children? We can't keep having these philosophical conversations. So,
but I don't think these are philosophical conversations at all. I think if we're going to have a conversation about the criminal justice system or the criminal injustice system, we're going to have to talk about how people are treated differently based upon their race, and we have to talk about what are the practical ways to fix that. How do we undo
that? But let me leave you with this.
Sure, please.
You're not going to have any black voters going that way, period.
I guess I don't follow that having a discussion about race in really honest terms is going to turn off African American voters.
Okay, but let me just say one more time, and then I'm going to have to go, that conversations about race in America, you can set your watch to them. What black pragmatic voters have to look at are the number of 30-year-old black men dying in jail, the number of the 67% of kids that can't graduate from a public school, And these are not conversations. We're either going to stop it or we're not. So
but I guess
the conversations about race are great for some people because those conversations are how their lives work. But if you're black, a conversation is just a conversation.
Maggie, let me jump in on this one.
Yeah, go for it, Tom. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate your call.
Thank you very much for the call. Because we've been having this discussion for a while now in regards to how government looks at this, and I've come to a conclusion just personally that as a white man who lives in the suburbs, if I am not working extremely diligent every day on institutional racism, I am not doing my part to change the world to where it needs to get to go. I can do nothing about individual racism. There is no way to turn back people's views once they become racist. It's very difficult to do. Yet all of us have a chance to really work on institutional racism, and I think that needs to be part of the Democratic platform, and I think it needs to be a big part, just like you were saying, Ming, when it comes to criminal justice reform, when it comes to job creation, when it comes to where do we allocate resources. I think in this state, Madison for a long time, the Republicans have choked the funding in Milwaukee County, and it's created a whole bunch of different problems. And what it falls on is it falls on poverty. And if you look at the county of Milwaukee, poverty it creates more of a problem with persons of color than it does with the white population.
In large part because we've created institutions and systems to do exactly that thing. And maybe Linda and I are saying the same thing. Is I believe what I heard her saying is that she thinks black folks want results. I think we all want results, and in order to get results, part of the challenge is that we do have to confront institutionalized racism every day. If we want to change the inequities in our criminal justice system and talk about why black men as a relative man, whites and blacks use drugs at the same rates. Black folks are incarcerated and charged at 4 times the rate as whites. Why is that? Well, we got to talk about those things. But if Linda's saying we need some results, I'm with you, Linda from Madison.
And yes, we do. We
need
to stop talking and we need to start changing.
That's right. We got one segment left, folks. I'm going to try to keep the callers to short clips so we can get through everybody if you are on the line now, including my boss, Mike Curdy. We will get to you when we come back. Thanks so much for listening to Maggie Dawn and Tom Paulsowitz doing a special guest host of the Devil's Advocates on Wisconsin's Political Talk, 101.7 Milwaukee, 92.7 Madison. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back for our last segment of the day in just a moment.
I am the chosen one.
In a union, there is strength. Wisconsin has had a long history with the organized labor movement in America, fighting for stronger wages, affordable health care, and retirement security, the values of the middle class. You can be part of that experience. Let Teamsters 200 be your partner. Your voice matters. Call Teamsters Local 200 at 414-771-6363 or visit us at www.teamsterslocal200.com or on Facebook. Make a difference. Union Yes.
Hi, I'm Todd Stryker, President and CEO of Five Nines. Have you got your head in the clouds on how to manage IT for your enterprise? We can make your dreams a reality. With our enterprise cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting, we'll manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Consider Five Nines your personal enterprise IT solution. Enjoy technology. For more information, visit fivenines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
Tune in to Wisconsin's Political Talk on Talk 101.7 FM. Weekdays, you can hear the Santita Jackson Show from 6 to 8 a.m. Next, it's the Earl Ingram Show from 8 to 11. From 11 till 2, the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's Matt Flynn Direct. From 3 to 6, the Devil's Advocates. At 6, it's Busted Pencils, Brandy Grayson, and Maggie Dawn. And at 7, it's Democracy Now! Wisconsin's Political Talk. Listen online at Talk1017FM.com.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com.
Here's the thing, we started out friends. It was cool, but it was all pretend.
The Devil's Advocates. Rock and roll political commentary in a top 40 world.
Is this me and Mike? Since you've been gone, Mike.
I just try and keep on topic when I have a song. It's all I do.
Works. It works.
Yep, it's great.
Speaking of Mike, boss, you got 2 minutes because we got to get through the other callers. What do you got for us, buddy? Are you there, Mike? It's me, Margaret.
Yeah. Maggie Dunn. Yeah, I'm here. I'm calling live from Minnesota, going live from the Park Tavern in St. Louis Park, St. Paul, Minnesota. We're going to have some Super Tuesday results. You know, they start dropping in like 10 minutes.
So excited.
Going live at, I know, I'm very excited. Devil's Advocates going live like 7 to 11 Central Time. Our friend Tim Slecker, he will be the meat and the sandwich between the Devil's Advocates and the show you're filling in for, and us going live here at 7.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear what you got for us this evening, crew. Thanks for the shout out, buddy. Sorry, Mike, dropped you there. We've got Steve from Delafield, who has been an absolute soldier. Steve, thank you for waiting. What do you have for us this afternoon?
Yes, hello, Maggie, Keith, and Tom. Thanks for taking my call. Maggie, you said that the problem with getting progressive goals accomplished is that we have to get everything passed through both houses of Congress. But I got to remind you that in 2008, we gave Barack Obama and Joe Biden a veto-proof Congress, and they could have passed everything that we wanted, everything. You know, instead, Obama, you know, he could have regulated the Wall Street banks that just stole like $15 trillion from the taxpayers. Instead, Obama sent out like the National Guard to smash the heads of all the progressives that occupy Wall Street. And Obama allowed the oil pipeline protesters at Standing Rock to be tear gassed, shot, and sprayed with freezing water. He could have given us Medicare for all. He could have passed all the gun laws we wanted that we've been begging for. He could have stopped the wars. And he could have raised taxes on all the billionaires. Obama, as Obama, right towards the end of his second term, he tried to ram the TPP down our throats, at the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. You know, something like it's like the NAFTA deal.
Yeah, but for the Far East, just a couple. Let's take a quick pause here, Steve. Couple of things. Having both houses of Congress is a necessary but not sufficient condition. I also specifically and respectfully disagree that Obama would have had any more success trying to do all of those things at once than doing healthcare. I think he made a choice about what he thought was most important to help this country, and he literally expended every political chit he had, made every bargain that he had to do with Democrats. He was fighting to get the Democrats to support not Medicare for all, to just support what he needed to get Obamacare done. He would not have been able to end all wars at once. It would have destabilized the Middle East. You can't just pull troops back all at once. You can come up with a plan to do that, which will go somewhat right and somewhat wrong. Tom?
Yeah, and the other really important thing is by the time he got into office, the economy was in a tailspin.
Right.
So he had to throw out everything he ran on And the one thing that he was able to bring back in a timely fashion was the Affordable Care Act. And I am personally thankful that he did that, especially having 3 kids who went through their 20s and being able to cover them through that process, and also knowing lots of people who have pre-existing conditions that suddenly didn't have to worry about whether they could get health care or not. It's all about choices, and it's nice to look back and go, everything could have been done, but I have to agree with Maggie on this one. You know, there are only certain things that you can do, and there's always a battle. It's never an easy thing, because, and you've seen this on the show today, even as Democrats, we can't agree on things. And it takes a while to get consensus. It takes a while to get people moving forward. And that is, at least to me, that's why I'm running, because it's about figuring out what we actually can do and taking small steps to start incrementally making the changes that we need to make.
Thank you so much for the call, Steve. Annie from Watertown, hello, and welcome to the Devils with Maggie and Tom this afternoon.
Yeah, it can be really frustrating when people say, well, the Democrats didn't do anything, or Feingold didn't do anything. It's like, well, they just can't go and do it on their own, you know, like they don't understand how things work. But what Linda was saying, I'm hearing stop talking and do something.
Yeah.
You know, and then you hear a lot of complaints that Obama didn't do anything. Then I hear, oh, you're going to be the white folks' savior. You know, you're going to come and fix everything for us. And it's like, so I don't know. What do I do? Can't talk about it. How are we going to figure it out?
And I truly think that we're all kind of trying to talk about things in a way, particularly here in Milwaukee and in the Midwest, people get really uncomfortable and they sort of avoid the difficult topics. And I think one of the ways that we can get really honest about policy and start making a difference and actually showing some damn results is when we start having the hard conversations and we give people some space to have that. I think the conversation that's happening now, certainly in Milwaukee County government, but in many other places, is a totally different conversation about race than we've seen ever before. Yes. It's a different conversation than what was going on in the civil rights movement. And it's a conversation that is necessary now, particularly in the face of Trump. I didn't mean to cut you off, Annie.
No, that was pretty much, you know, just how I feel like there's nothing really I can do on my own. And, you know, I just felt her attitude was like, no, I don't want to talk. I want you to do something. You know, what are you going to do? Well, how about, what do you think we should do? Right.
The solution orientation is a big deal. And one of the things that I think particularly white people can do, white people that live in somewhat exclusive neighborhoods or in places where everyone around you looks like you, thinks like you, is go out and put yourself into different cultures and different places where everybody doesn't look like you. Meet some different friends. Have these discussions. Ask questions and listen to the answers for people that have different lived experiences. Thanks, Annie, for the call. Tom, you wanted to add?
Yeah, and we also need to end gerrymandering, because gerrymandering allows us to go to the extremes and elect people on the extremes. I firmly believe we need to elect people based on their ideas and re-elect people based on results, because if we don't do that, it's going to be hard to move forward as a country.
Joan, you got like 30 seconds, but I didn't want to not give you a chance, my friend. What do you got for us?
I just want Pelosi and Schumer to act respectful towards Bernie. If they want unity, they need to show him some unity and not poo-poo everything he stands for. He's the only one who's been honest and consistent these last 6-8 years, and I'm tired of those establishment Democrats screwing us.
Well, I totally agree with you. I think the only way for us to build that unity and to build anybody else but Trump is that we have to be respectful and give each other space to have some reasoned disagreements. Tom, you got the last word tonight.
I'll agree, and I learned this a long time ago, that in any relationship, we own 100% of the outcome. So I think it's important for Senator Sanders to understand that his words and his deeds and his actions do have an impact. And if he wants things to change with other people, he also needs to change.
There you have it. It has been a special edition of the Devil's Advocates with Maggie Dawn. You can hear me 6 to 7 live on Thursdays and Fridays right here on Wisconsin's Political Talk. My thanks to Tom Paulzowitz. Stay tuned. Lots to come this evening as Super Tuesday results come in. Lock it in.
Hi, this is Mark Nice, a retiree of Teamsters Local 200, and I want to remind you